stop smoking, man?
Well, I threw Levi out of the house by his hair. The girls went out the window. My eyes were burnt shut. It felt like somebody hit me in the face with 5 baseball bats at the same time. I could be sitting 2 feet from you, and you're not there. You're not there. You are not there. It was pink elephants flying.
You are not able to tell the truth right now. I need to put on a show to make it so nobody knows it happened. Showtime.
911, what's location of your emergency?
Yes, I live at 885 Yale Farm Road.
Okay.
I think I need an ambulance.
Okay, what's going on?
The truck fell on my stepson.
The truck fell on your stepson?
Yes, and we just got home, and I don't think he's alive.
You don't think he's alive?
No, 885.
Okay, he's pinned underneath the truck?
Yeah, my husband's lifting up the truck. Honestly, I don't think he's alive.
Okay, how old is your son?
He's 22.
And did your husband get the truck off of him?
He was jacking it up when I was just out there.
Okay, are you with your son right now?
He's not alive.
Is he breathing?
No.
He is not breathing. Okay.
No.
Okay, we're going to start CPR, okay?
Yeah, Carl, they want to start CPR. Do you know CPR? His chest is crushed.
His chest is crushed?
No. He's probably been under here for hours. Oh my God.
All right. What is your first name?
Cindy.
Cindy?
Cindy.
Okay, and your last name is Karlsen?
Karlsen. Oh my God. This is awful.
The 911 call you just heard was placed after Levi Karlsen's stepmother discovered his lifeless body in the barn. He'd been performing repairs under his dad's old truck when it suddenly collapsed, effectively crushing every last remnant of life right out of him. 4 years later, in the interrogation room, years of unbelievable secrets would be revealed, exposing a story so shocking, you'll have to see it to believe it. What investigators would soon uncover was more twisted than they ever could have imagined, reaching much further than the tragic accident in his garage. The majority of the following interrogation footage has never been seen before. Karl Karlsen had joined the Air Force and was stationed at the Grand Forks Air Force Base, located in North Dakota during the early 80s. Over the years, he headed a variety of failed business endeavors, including raising horses and a gourmet duck breeding venture. According to his older brother, Karl was never skilled when it came to money management. Of course, this claim will take on a whole new meaning later. In 1983, he married Christina Alexander, and together the couple had 3 children, 2 daughters and 1 son, Levi. That marriage ended in disaster. Karl would marry again in 1993, this time to a woman named Cindy Best. The two met at a line dancing event in Seneca Falls, and they fell in love after Karl told her the tragic tale of his life. More on that later. However, it was the collapse of this second marriage that would eventually lead to Karl's arrest in 2012, 4 years after Levi's death in 2008. Karl was intercepted by Lieutenant John Clear and Detective Thomas Crowley outside a local restaurant in the town of Ovid, New York, where they asked him to accompany them to the sheriff's office to answer some questions, and Karl agreed. Upon arrival just a few minutes later, Karl was led to an interrogation room where the questioning would commence. As the following interrogation unfolds, the story only gets crazier with each new revelation. The detective starts by directing Karl to sit in the chair that's furthest from the door so he feels trapped in the room and ill at ease. The room is intentionally bland with nothing in it but chairs and a table. This is done to reduce distractions and make it feel like an unfamiliar and uncomfortable environment to add to the suspect's stress. The suspect then relies on the interrogators to ease the stress or amp it up as they need to, in order to get the truth out of them. If you're a frequent viewer, you may have noticed that the arrangement of suspects and interrogators in the rooms is not always the same. Different interrogators use different strategies depending on their own training, the rooms, the suspects themselves, or if they have safety concerns. However, the way they stage the room and where they have the suspects sit is almost always intentional, for one purpose or another.
Your daughter's a police officer, right?
Yeah.
So you know about your Miranda rights?
Oh, yeah.
The detective mentions they know his daughter is a police officer to put on record the fact that he's likely familiar with Miranda rights and police procedure, or at least more so than the average person may be. Then he proceeds to read Karl his Miranda warnings. In the years following Levi's death, Cindy, Levi's stepmother, started to become suspicious that perhaps his death wasn't an accident, but something far more sinister. In fact, Cindy was so concerned that she began having panic attacks. She knew she had to devise a plan to uncover the truth. It was while watching a true crime show that she had an idea. She decided to secretly record Karl and see if she could get him to confess. First, she told Karl they should separate for a while, and she moved out. Then she told him that the only way she'd get back together with him is if he was honest with her about everything that happened throughout their marriage. Karl agreed, not knowing that Cindy was recording, but her plan would go terribly wrong. The pair met at a restaurant, and to Cindy's shock, Karl confirmed her suspicions and confessed to Levi's murder. However, after she took her recording to the sheriff's office, she realized Karl's voice couldn't be heard on the tape. Still, her suspicion led investigators to reassess the case. They asked her to record him again, this time wearing a wire. Cindy agreed, though she worried that she'd already blown her chance and that Karl may have been tipped off. Not only was she concerned that he wouldn't confess again, but that he might even try to kill her. Regardless, the pair met again at a restaurant, and Cindy's worst fears were confirmed. Karl changed his story.
You're sorry about it, right?
Every minute.
Okay, Karl, and I asked you if you pushed the truck, and you said yes.
I didn't push the truck, I said I had nothing to do, but I said I took advantage of the situation once it happened.
In a transcript of the conversation, Karl says that while Levi was working on the truck, he went into the barn and inched it up and then it slid. She slid back and zoom.
I took advantage of the situation once it happened.
It was never planned from day one to go that way, from the time we did the insurance. Most chillingly, Karl said of his son, if it did happen, he's done things in life. Now, Karl sits in the interrogation room, and in 3 seconds, he'll begin to describe the disturbing events of that day, and things will quickly escalate as the interrogation continues.
Okay, you guys don't know what happened that day.
Tell us about
The day that my son died.
it.
Her and I, we had a funeral to go to. Left at 11:30, 11:45, somewhere like that. It was on the other side of Seneca Lake. Son was there.
Notice the way Karl says son was there. It's as if he's checking an item off a list. It seems very distant and highly impersonal. He didn't say my son, nor did he show any emotion or sadness at mentioning Levi.
He helped me. We were working on the truck, changing the transmission lines, brake lines, the whole 9 yards. Talked to him, said goodbye. He was going to work on his truck later in the afternoon because he had to change something. I can't remember what it was. So then we left, come back a little after 4, and went out there and found it.
Karl's story sounds very rehearsed. This may be because he's recited it numerous times to police before, or because he has a timeline of events or an alibi that he's created and is sticking to. The casual and emotionless way Karl discusses how he found his son dead is disturbing and a major red flag of guilt. No matter how many times a parent says those words, one would expect it to bring up emotions or sadness.
Did you say anything before you left?
Just see you later and thanks, or what, just...
So you had gone out to the car with your wife, and then you went into the barn?
Yep, because I forgot to give him the money.
Did you give him the money?
Yep, $50 bill.
Karl would pay Levi with Mountain Dew and whatever cash he had on him, whenever he would work on the truck.
And then what happened? What else happened?
And then I left. Because he was in front of the bumper.
Was the radio on at that time?
Yep.
Okay, what was it playing?
I don't know.
Okay, and then what happens?
And then I left.
You left with Cindy to go where?
To her aunt, I believe it was, to the reception, just a short time. Then we got back at it was after 4. I went out in the garage, and because we were surprised he was still there. If the truck is this way, he was laying this way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went in, yelled, banging on the door, and told her to call ambulance, and started jacking it up, and she come out. There's no doubt about, the only jack that was there was the big railroad jack, which is my father's. And it was an old one that they used to use way back when, I guess, what we were told, is it lifted up the old railroad irons. They come in, tried doing CPR, and he was already gone. And they said he had died right around 1 or 2 o'clock. It's right on the death certificate and all that stuff. And I asked him, I said, you know, and it's a question you hate to ask, but it's like...
Well, let me tell you, let me stop you right there.
The detective's trying to get him to stop denying the actual time of death of his son, which is at a time that likely exculpates him. This is a step of the Reed technique. Letting the suspect deny their guilt will increase their confidence, so the interrogator tries to interrupt all denials.
What we know to be true is you pushed that car over.
I did not.
Well, the only thing that remains to be found out is what the reasons were.
Here, the detective uses the first step of the Reed technique, called positive confrontation. The interrogator presents the facts of the case and informs the suspect of the evidence against them, implying in a confident manner that the suspect is involved in the crime. The suspect's stress level increases, and the interrogator may move around the room, invading the suspect's personal space to increase the discomfort.
No,
You know, here's the thing. You confessed to your wife.
I lied to my wife.
If that were the case, why would he confess to a murder he allegedly didn't commit? It makes no logical sense.
You have her wired? And be honest with me.
Yes, we do.
I thought you did.
It's all recorded.
It seems Karl has quite a hole to dig himself out of at this point.
You make difficult decisions, and the fact of the matter is you did what most people would want to do, but don't have a
I don't
chance to do
understand
it.
what you mean by that.
What I mean by that is exactly what you told your wife. Your son, unfortunately, was flawed, like everybody else. And just like you told your wife on multiple times that you did what you had to do, you took an opportunity to benefit your family.
The detective is trying to align himself with Karl and normalize what he did to his son as a way to make Karl feel more comfortable and, therefore, more likely to talk.
You cannot now take those words back. You can't do that.
Well,
it doesn't benefit your family. It's completely against your character, and it doesn't help you any. You were at your finest moment when you were making decisions to benefit your family.
He's developing a theme, which is another step in the Reed method. The proposed theme is that Karl killed his son to benefit his family, and that he confessed because he's a good person.
They call that murder.
I never called that murder.
I do.
That's what you're nervous about now.
No,
You're afraid that you did the right thing, and now you're sitting here saying, "Oh my God, I'm trying to help my family, and now I'm in trouble."
Okay, what do you call it?
We want to find out what's in your heart, so we know what to call it.
I would call that murder.
Why don't you talk to us about what really happened? And then we'll tell you what to call
I would call that murder.
The theme is not one Karl is latching onto, as he knows that in society, it's not morally justifiable or legal to kill for money, even if it helps your family out. Many psychopaths understand what society deems acceptable. They just don't follow those rules.
You don't kill your son. You don't kill anybody for money.
Listen, who said anything about money? What are you talking about?
Both detectives feign surprise when Karl mentions money as the possible motive, stating that they never said anything about money. The money Karl is referring to is Levi's life insurance policy, a hefty sum of $707,000.
And nobody thinks because of what happened to Levi that you're any less of a person. I actually think in my heart that I have children, and it must have been the most difficult thing in the world. But you were able to do it. And I'm not saying it's right. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying that you made a difficult decision, and now you have to live with that decision.
Instead of saying he murdered his son, the detective is portraying it as a difficult decision Karl made to try to get him to start talking about it.
I'm not asking you. I'm telling you what we know to be true that came out of your own words. You pushed the car over on your son. You said it. We've heard it. It's a matter of evidence, along with several other things that will prove the same thing. Do not make yourself look like a monster. You did what was in your heart, and now you're trying to pull back because you're now, for the first time in your life, you're worried about you. Before you worried about your family, now you're actually worried about yourself.
About me.
Is that right?
I've always been worried about me is the exact thought process of a psychopath. They worry about their own needs above all else. Me first, me second, and me last. Psychopaths view people as a means to get what they want. Levi was a means for Karl to get money, nothing more.
You're worried about you now when you should be worried about your family.
Well, the only one in my family right now is me.
The detective knows Karl only worries about himself, and this is all just a ploy to get him to discuss committing the murder.
Now, you said something about money. I don't believe that. I don't believe that you did anything for money. I don't believe that for 1 second, because there's no amount of money that can make that worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
But you brought up money. Did you do anything like this for money?
No.
Okay then.
Notice how Karl shifts after the detective brings up money. Pay attention to Karl's movements each time money is mentioned.
You know what? I want a lawyer or something, I guess, because I don't understand what... You guys aren't listening to me.
Well, we want to hear the truth.
And I'm trying to tell you, but you're just saying I'm lying. So it's like, I'm sorry.
By law, he must now stop questioning Karl. The detective sits back and lets Karl talk, as he can legally no longer interrogate him without an attorney or without Karl re-waiving his Miranda rights.
She took my son 8 months ago.
You asked for the term. So we're not going to ask any more questions.
Okay. You said, I guess.
I guess, what do you mean?
You said, you said I need to talk to a lawyer, I guess.
However, the lieutenant points out the technicality that Karl only stated, I guess, in regards to wanting a lawyer.
You know what? I want a lawyer or something, I guess.
Do you want to continue to talk to us before we continue to listen?
Because we can end this now, if that's,
I know.
We'll just go on with what we know.
No, I don't want... I did not have anything to do in Levi's stuff. Not a thing. I didn't.
You have to let us know, yes or no. Do you want an attorney right now and you want us to stop and just go with what we know?
He presses Karl for a yes or no answer regarding whether he wants an attorney. But his tone and the way he phrases it is somewhat questionable. It may have pressured Karl to feel like he had to say no to needing an attorney. It's also possible that Karl feels that asking for an attorney could make him appear guilty, while staying to talk to detectives could be his best option to prove his innocence. There's always a power differential in interrogations, with the detectives having the upper hand and authority, as well as the comfort of having gone through this many times before.
Or do you want to continue to talk to us and try and work this out? It's up to you. You have to give us a solid a clue. It's called a clear declaration, my friend.
The lieutenant tries to get Karl to re-waive his rights by calling him my friend, touching his arm to appear like his ally, and making it seem like him talking is to his benefit. However, it almost never is.
We know a lot of what happened, but only you, Karl, knows what's in your head.
Oh, I know. I know what's in my head and in my heart.
He gets closer to Karl and stands over him in order to apply more pressure as he invades Karl's personal space.
Don't lie to us.
You're not believing me.
We knew that you were in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And we know that
What does that have to do with it?
Because I respect you for that. Are you proud of the time you spent in the Air Force?
I am. I loved it.
You should be proud of that. And I know that when you were in there, like anybody that does military training, you probably were trained to make life and death decisions.
Right.
I think you just made one. When it came to Levi, I think there was a problem, and you did what you were trained, what you were programmed to do.
No, I don't agree with that.
While the lieutenant is well aware that this is much different, he's trying to normalize what Karl did to make it easier for him to confess.
You do not want a lawyer right now?
Not right at this minute, no.
Okay.
Karl re-waives his Miranda rights, and therefore, the detectives can begin questioning him again. They want to lock him into a confession so there's no chance a jury could find reasonable doubt. There's little evidence stronger than a taped confession by the suspect.
Something's wrong. She's setting me up. She's just setting me up. I mean, how else can you describe it? And I'm like, all right, I'm going to, and I...
Karl, that's not what happened.
Well...
We're adults and we're professionals, and what you're doing now is you're trying to backtrack.
He likely believes that the strongest evidence the police have against him is that he confessed to his wife, so he's trying to undo that confession. The detectives immediately shoot down his story that he was set up and refuse to let him use that theory.
It's not just your own words. We have corroborated that with physical evidence. So it's when you're telling us I didn't do it, it's like you telling us that there's not a 500-pound gorilla here. If there was a 500-pound gorilla sitting right here, it would be the same thing as you saying he's not here.
You weren't there.
Well, tell us what happened.
I spoiled my son,
Okay.
Levi, terribly.
I believe that. How was his life? Levi's.
The detective asked Karl about Levi to try to get an idea of how Karl felt about him and get him to explain how he was a drain on him and the family. Then he can tie that back into why Karl wanted him dead. Levi and Karl were known to have a strained relationship. In fact, by 16, Levi moved out of Karl's house. He was married at 18 to Cassie Hone, and the couple had 2 daughters. After 5 years of marriage, they were divorced, but Levi was said to love being a father.
He was seeing his kids more, he was paying child support, he was doing the whole 9 yards. You know, I mean, it was what a father dreams of.
This backfires, and Karl begins telling them how, before he died, he was doing great and had finally turned his life around. This makes the theory less plausible for the detectives by what Karl is saying. They will have to come back to this topic to discredit him.
You know what a lot of people think? You know what a lot of people think that are involved in this?
No.
They think that you took that insurance policy out and that you did this for the money. I don't believe that.
No.
The detective is separating him from the motive that he did this for the money. Everyone in the room knows that is why this was done, and this is just a tactic to have Karl confess with an alternative reason that is less reprehensible.
No.
That's what they think about it, though. Think about why do people think that?
I know. Oh, believe me.
Why do people think that?
I went through the same thing when my wife died.
When did you wed?
1990.
Make a mental note of this. We'll return to the subject shortly. He moves his hand to rub his upper chest and shoulder area, and he keeps it there for around 4 minutes, which could possibly be a self-soothing behavior. It can also be an indicator that Karl's body heat is increasing from stress. This is where the phrase, hot under the collar, comes from.
We can prove right now that it was you that forced that car over. To me, you know, I think you did it out of a father's love.
The detective is now using the alternative theory technique, where he offers 2 motives, one being that he did it for the insurance money and the other that he did it out of love, to try to get Karl to latch on to the less morally despicable explanation.
And there's no way a man can do it for the money.
No, there's no way.
When you come in here and lie, I gotta think that.
No, there's no way. There's no way. Sorry.
Well, then you have to be honest with us and tell us.
I am.
You didn't do it for the money.
I did not do it for the money, and I did not do it.
An innocent person would not say they didn't commit murder for money. They would flat out say they've never committed murder, period. This demonstrates that Karl may have not only slipped and then tried to correct himself, but he may also be trying to convince himself that he wouldn't kill his son for money. It's possible that in the privacy of his own thoughts, Karl has made up some other reason or explanation for killing Levi that is easier for him to digest.
Karl, I think deep down, you knew this day was going to come.
The lieutenant again touches Karl using the Reed technique, called getting the suspect's attention. This is done when the suspect is at the point of frustration and unsure of themselves. They may be looking for someone to help him escape the situation. In this technique, the interrogator tries to capitalize on that insecurity by pretending to be the suspect's ally. The detective tries to appear even more sincere in their continued theme development and gets physically closer to the suspect, making it harder for the suspect to detach from the situation. He offers physical gestures of camaraderie and concern by touching his leg.
You told Cindy that one of the reasons that you took the opportunity to do it was because he was a bird. What did you mean by that?
I don't know. You'll find out my memory's not the greatest because of the medicine I'm on. So it's things don't, you know, I've been on a lot of drugs since 2001.
Karl is beginning to build a possible defense. Apparently, Karl can't clearly remember his conversation with Cindy. This excerpt leaves no question about Karl's intentions on that fateful day.
Karl, you told me that you didn't set it up that way, but when you were in there, you saw the opportunity.
After it had happened, then I saw the opportunity.
But between the methadone, between the fentanyl, between the Vicodin, between all the other crap I take, I could be sitting 2 feet from you. And you're not there. You're not there. You are not there.
What do you mean by that?
You're not there.
You don't recognize if someone's there?
Oh, hell no. I'm looking through you. You're not there. I mean, it was pink elephants flying.
He's giving a million excuses to avoid responsibility, as most pathological liars and sociopaths will do.
It had not occurred to me, but is it that the medicine, you didn't know what you were doing until afterwards? I mean, I don't know.
The detective now tries to use the theme that Karl has proposed. He's trying to get him to confess to killing his son, and because he was so high and messed up from all the drugs, he didn't know what he was doing. The detectives are fine with this tactic, as they can always disprove this later. They already know the evidence speaks to a clear financial motive. The detective may have thought it could be easier for Karl to admit guilt if he could blame it on the medication. Notice Karl leans closer to the detective. This theme may be one he'll latch onto.
Is that what happened?
No, I don't. No,
Is that what, we know the act occurred. We don't know what's going on in your head, and that's what today's about.
I don't know what was going on in my head back then.
No, I think we should talk about the insurance. I think we're at that point. We have to address that.
This is important as it's the motive they believe was behind the murder. They also change topics as they realize he isn't going to confess yet, so they're now going to confront him with the motive to try to sway him.
And were you the beneficiary of this policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Karl was the beneficiary, which is rather unusual, given the fact that Levi had children and didn't seem to have a good relationship with Karl.
And what was the policy for? What was the amount?
$300,000.
Was there anything in addition that would subsidize that insurance policy? That would make it greater if certain circumstances occurred?
Oh, he had, there was, which I didn't know. Mm-hmm. He had, there was accidental death, which we didn't even talk about that I know of. But
were you there when he signed that?
Yeah, I was in the room and he signed that.
Did you sign it as well? Because I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
Karl mentions that the policy was for $300,000. He may be trying to downplay the policy's value to the detectives. The base of the policy was actually $400,000. However, Karl had an accidental death rider on the policy as well. This means that if Levi died from accidental circumstances, he would receive an extra $300,000, totaling his life insurance benefit to $700,000. By bringing this up, the detective is revealing evidence that points to Karl planning the murder, showing premeditation.
And what were your plans with that money? What did you tell
Part
Levi?
of it? Yeah. Oh, Levi wanted, part of it goes to the girls.
Did he want you to have it?
I had total control because he did not, one thing, because...
Who spent that money?
My wife and I.
Okay. Did Levi's children spend that money?
No.
Is that who it was intended for?
Well, yeah, well,
it was intended for his children, right?
But we split,
And his what? The mother of his children, right?
Not for her.
It wasn't for her?
Levi, no.
To this day, does she know that there's a policy?
No.
Karl also saw to it that Levi's ex-wife Cassie was never aware of the policy. According to a statement she made on May 4th of 2012, 3.5 years after Levi's death, she described when she found out about the funds for the first time. I can't believe Karl had an insurance policy on Levi. I'm shocked and sick by this. I was always told there was no money, nothing.
Let's go through it right now.
No,
before his death, you and him go down and he becomes insured.
Right.
You're the beneficiary.
Right.
For what totals will be $700,000.
Yeah, which I only thought was $300,000 because I didn't know there was an accidental death.
Why would he do that?
I don't know.
And then he died in an accident.
I don't know.
Yeah. Strange.
Now the detective is tying up all the details of the insurance to show how bad it looks. He's hoping that Karl will confess to one of the alternative theories they proposed earlier when he realizes how terrible this one appears.
I know you guys want me to just spill my guts saying, oh, I pushed it over, I killed him, and I can't say that because I didn't.
Although you have said that.
I played the game with her.
Okay, what's that game?
The game is like, the game that I didn't understand.
How did this game work out? You say it was a game. Tell me what's the game?
Karl refers to confessing to his wife about killing his son as a game, but he's unable to give a clear answer as to what he was hoping to achieve by allegedly lying to her.
What game were you playing?
And what about the part
where you were saying, is this a trap? What about that part?
Because I knew it was.
You know what they call that?
Yeah.
Consciousness of guilt.
What woman would have you admit to doing something like that and lay next to you at night? I said, I certainly wouldn't. I said, if you're going to do it once, you're going to do it twice.
Mm. So how did it break out from that point?
We put...
And then a couple weeks later, I sit down.
In the background of Karl's interrogation, a woman's voice can be heard. This voice is believed to belong to his wife Cindy, who may have also been speaking with investigators in another room at the same time as him. Though the voice hasn't been confirmed to be Cindy, and much of her conversation is muffled, there are two things that can be heard clearly. It sounds as though she says, "There's no doubt in my mind that he did it," followed by, "That was his fault."
They had...
There's no doubt in my mind.
Once
Probably did both.
He was more afraid that Cassie was going to get money, that she could get her hands on it.
And then they lived in North Dakota.
You know, and it's like, you know, and it was his call. I mean, I sat there and, you know, sort of threw my 2 cents in, but it was all his decision. If they need braces, if they need glasses, if Cassie can't provide something, that money, and Cassie has always known that if she gets in a jam and needs something right now, and it's for the girls, I will get it.
To this day, does she know that there's a policy?
No, he did not want.
And has his children benefit from that money?
No, and it wasn't supposed to be for now. You know,
If she feels that when Cassie's come to you before for money,
she's never come to me for money. No.
have you offered to give her money?
Yes, and I've offered, and like I say, I take out meat to him a lot.
How many times do you think you've done that?
Only once, but a big
It was a big
load because she
When
didn't-
was that?
a month or so ago. But I've been after her. I mean, you can check my emails all the time. I mean, you know, do you need meat? Do you need meat? Well, not right now. Not right now. I offered her, you know, I buy a Thanksgiving turkey for her. I just feel I owe it to her, you know? And I know she's struggling.
Karl admits that his 2 granddaughters haven't received any of the money. However, despite this, he tries to portray himself as being generous because he once bought the girls and their mother a Thanksgiving turkey, and he took meat to them as well on one occasion. The detective and lieutenant casually chat with Karl to continue to build rapport and to lull Karl into a false sense of security in their presence. If he's comfortable and relaxed, he'll be more open to talking with them about the subjects that are actually important. Also, they're establishing that his memory is good, contrary to his hinting that his medications make him forget things.
I've had some of the tallest horses in the world, and I've had the biggest mare in the world. She weighed 3,200 pounds. She ended up dying, but the bone in the foot rotated, and the bone come out the bottom of her foot.
Oh.
And I mean,
Did that cause her death?
No, she died in a fire.
Karl begins discussing a barn fire that killed his horses, and this is where the story starts to get crazy.
Oh.
It was a barn fire proven that it had the old cloth wiring in the barn.
He makes the extra step of mentioning it was proven, which is rather suspicious. No one asked if the fire was investigated, and him throwing that in shows a consciousness of guilt. Cindy offered her own account in a statement she provided to law enforcement in 2012. It stated how Karl got caught up in the middle of the night, went downstairs, then returned to bed moments later. He told Cindy he'd used a downstairs bathroom, which she found odd. Within a few minutes, Cindy stated, Karl leaped from bed, looked out the window, and told Cindy to call 911. The barn was on fire.
In the barn, there was no flame. It was just smoke. I mean, it was just smoke. There was no fire at all. And,
Well, why'd you come running out of the house?
because, well, oh no, there was an orange glow. Like
Wait,
like,
was there
hold on.
smoke or glow?
No, hold on. Get back. There was I looked out the window and we had like an inch or two of snow, and there was an orange glow out in the driveway.
From the smoke?
No.
Why am I getting confused?
No, just hold on a second. I got to backtrack here.
All right.
Following the barn fire, Karl was interviewed about the details of any insurance policies he had on the animals that were killed in the fire and the barn that was destroyed. The purpose of the interview was to gather background information to determine whether or not Karl had a legitimate insurance claim, or if the fire could have been intentionally set. In this interview, Karl talks about the discovery of the fire, which has slightly different details than the story he told detectives.
Who actually discovered the fire? I did by looking out the bedroom window. Your bedroom faces the barn and the buildings involved in this fire? No, the bedroom faces the road, but I could see the glow of orange on the ground due to the fact we had a little snow coverage.
He also shares a story eerily similar to one he will tell later about another fire.
Did you try to remove the horses once the fire was discovered? Yes, I went around the side of the barn. We had 2 big sliding doors. I opened up one, and there was so much smoke that it just forced me back.
And that was on the property you have now?
Yeah, that was the home barn that Dad had.
Karl changes the topic to talk more about himself and his own background.
What did you do in the military?
I was top secret security clearance. I put nuclear bombs together.
Okay. So what's that MOS? Is there an MOS? Is there an MOS number?
It's a 4433OG-4 blah, 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 and there's other things that, it's all top secret, that's stuff that we...
So you weren't a truck driver?
Oh yeah, I drove tractor trailer.
So when did you switch from that to top secret stuff?
That's what it was.
It was top secret because you would haul nuclear weapons?
We had launch code, I carried launch code capabilities, we carried a lot of shit that...
Because you were hauling the weapons.
Oh yeah, and the full-size missiles.
Karl shows narcissistic traits by telling grandiose stories of himself, where he is often the hero. Here, Karl tells an unbelievably crazy story of how he was responsible for assembling and delivering nuclear bombs. Apparently, he was even in charge of making launch codes for the U.S. military. He goes on to say that his delivery truck, which he used to deliver nuclear bombs across the U.S., caught on fire.
Well, now you got fire with a nuke.
That's bad, right? I don't know much about it.
Sounds bad to me.
Luckily, he was, of course, able to put out what he calls
the most serious problem that you can have in the U.S. If I don't stop, this thing's going to burn, and it's going to blow, and we can't run fast enough. So finally, I stopped. I caught hell about it.
What'd you do after you stopped?
We
You ran
got a
to hell,
tire,
right?
no, hell no. Got the tire iron out, and we unbolted the tires. We started back up, the tires fell off, and the faster I could go, the better it got. And we finally got to a launch control facility, which it looks like a hotel fenced in. They actually allowed us, for the first time, we brought out another trailer, and they actually let us move the nuke. I mean, the first thing you walk in, you learn 36 ways how to kill a guy with your bare hands, because you're hauling a nuke. And when you drive down the road, you got a M16 on your door, you got a pistol, you got an 870 Remington with an 8-inch barrel with a pump on top, aiming out your door. And it's like anybody gets near the truck, you kill them.
How many people do you have to kill to protect the truck?
The hope is that if they can get him to admit to something smaller, such as killing someone under military orders, perhaps it could make it easier to Karl to admit to killing someone else, like his son Levi.
Never on the truck.
That's good.
That's because, and what's funny is our security cops, they have to ask permission to put a round in the chamber. But us, being who we are, we're God. We don't have to answer. I go to work, and once we're off base, shirt comes off, shorts come on, T-shirt, no T-shirt. We didn't answer to the government.
This case has already been a wild ride, but investigators soon uncovered something from Karl's past that's even more twisted than they ever could have imagined. Rewind to the early 1980s. Karl and Christina Chris Alexander met at the Grand Forks, North Dakota Air Force Base and married in 1983. In January of 1984, their first child, Aaron, was born. The following year, their son Levi came along. Then, baby Katie's arrival in 1986 rounded out the family of 5. According to Chris's sister Colette, it was no secret that finances were a constant stressor for the family. After Karl's stint in the Air Force concluded, the family moved to Karl's home state of New York in 1986. Then, in 1988, they relocated once again to Chris's hometown of Murphys, California. A terrible accident then occurred on the 1st of January, 1991.
My wife had passed away, and...
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. What was she ill?
No, she died in a house fire.
The couple's home somehow caught fire. Karl managed to get each child out, but Chris wasn't as fortunate.
Oh, in the place you're talking about?
Yeah.
That's probably 10
And I threw my kids, I threw Levi out of the house by his hair, and the girls went out the window on the other end of the house.
How'd they get out the window?
And I broke the window.
Okay, this is where he came in here and he took Levi out.
Yeah, Levi was there.
This is Levi's bed.
And then you got Levi out, ran around, got the girls with the bath.
And the smoke got her, and her, is what the coroner said. And he said she wasn't burned bad, and but he said just remember
Was she not with the kids or something? Or?
Well, they were all sleeping, and she was up in the bathroom, and
she got up in the middle of the night or something?
And so she somehow, the way he says, because we had a puppy, a Dalmatian puppy, and we had kerosene heaters in the house, and the The dogs spilled the kerosene like 3-4 weeks before.
While taking a bath, Chris became trapped in the bathroom. It seems that the fire had ignited right outside the bathroom door, in the very spot the kerosene spill Karl spoke of had occurred. Tragically, Chris died of smoke inhalation. At the time of the initial investigation, the source of the fire was never clearly established, but discrepancies between Karl's recounting of events in 1991 and Karl's current version are overwhelming. He tells the detectives the kerosene spill occurred 3 to 4 weeks before the fire. However, according to documents dating back to the original investigation, Karl originally stated that the spill had occurred a day and a half prior to the fire.
This here's the bathroom where Christina was found.
Evidently, he laid the light out here.
Where? Now that's all documented?
Yeah. It's here. I guess the bathroom door is here. And kerosene got spilled here. That's where they presumed it started.
They said she was dead when she opened the door. Because they said...
Where was she in the house?
She was in the middle of the house. The house is like 80 to 100 feet long.
And they say there was paper sitting on the kerosene?
There was a piece of cardboard.
Okay, I want a picture of this. Here. I want a picture of this window.
I mean, it was
So she had no windows to get out?
No. And they figured...
What room was she in the middle of the house?
The bathroom.
Oh, so there were absolutely no windows to jump out of?
No. Well, when I broke the window, the fireball came out and burnt my eyes together, burnt my face. I mean, blew me right off the...
After the kids? After getting the kids out?
No, to get to them.
Oh, okay.
And it blew me off, and the kids are still in the house. And my eyes were burnt shut, so I pulled them apart and couldn't see worth shit. And my son had got to the window, and I got him by the hair.
This is Levi?
Yeah, and chucked him out. And I got the girls, and...
Once again, he paints himself as the hero of the story by detailing how he saved his children from the fire. However, in the time that followed the fire, an investigation was carried out. The tragedy that ended in his wife Chris's death resulted in many unanswered questions, despite the fact that Karl eventually received a life insurance payout in the amount of $200,000. After the horrendous fire occurred, Colette, Chris's older sister, couldn't understand how Karl had rescued each of the 3 children, yet it appeared he'd make no effort to save Chris. In official statements, Colette revealed 2 especially chilling accounts that occurred very shortly after Chris's death. After Colette received word of the fire, she drove the 3-hour trek from her home in Chico, California, to her father's home in Murphys, California. Chris's oldest child, Erin, who was 6 years old at the time, met her Aunt Colette at the door upon her arrival. She told Colette that their house had burnt down and her mother had gone to heaven. What came next was something Colette couldn't bear to hear. According to little Erin, Chris was yelling for Karl, but he'd ignored her. Also, within the very early days following the fire, Colette informed Karl of her wish to clothe Chris for the funeral. Karl responded that she couldn't. When she inquired as to why, he explained that Chris was a crispy critter. Naturally, Colette was taken aback. However, she'd been blindsided so hard by grief that she left that stone unturned. Perhaps she'd endured all she could handle at that time, but she would never forget those words. Decades later, they would finally come back to haunt Karl.
There's no reason he couldn't have got to that bathroom. No reason.
Doing what she could at the time, Colette used a video camera loaded with a tape that started off happily with a family birthday party.
Happy birthday to you.
Tragically, the next thing the tape would record was personal documentation of her sister's murder scene, a murder that was ruled as an accident. Clearly, she didn't believe that this fire was any accident and that Karl had indeed murdered her sister.
They told me at first she was a closet alcoholic. And I'm like, my wife had 1 drink, and that was the first night we ever slept together. And that was the last drink she ever took, so I don't know if you take that as a compliment.
Doesn't sound like one.
You know, she never drank. She was religious.
Well, I missed something totally. Why would they think she's a closet alcoholic?
Because her blood count or something. But lo and behold, what it was is that I never knew is that when you die, your blood boils or something, and your body produces alcohol. And I'm like, because they told me she committed. I'm sorry. Not this woman.
The detective comments that Karl has had a tough life.
You've had a tough life.
So I just sit there and said, you know what? I mean, I was making good money.
No, I mean because you lost your wife.
However, Karl thinks he's referring to problems with his house. It doesn't even seem to occur to Karl that he was referring to the losses of his wife and son.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
because of the water.
And I've been through hell in every freaking way.
So you lost your son
And my wife.
and your wife and those horses. The horses?
Horses. My big mare and 3 babies. You know, and the thing is like...
Well, I gotta ask, just because now that's brought up.
That's fine.
What? How much was the insurance on your wife?
$200 on her. There was insurance on all the kids. It was a...
You insured your kids?
Yeah, the wife, you know, there was a little insurance policy on each kid.
Okay.
Karl was likely trying to make it look less suspicious that his wife died in the fire by claiming that he didn't just have life insurance on her, but also for his 3 kids who survived the fire. He may have been trying to imply that he didn't kill his wife for money, because if that had been his motive, then he would have had a reason to kill his children as well. However, it's quite unusual for a parent to have life insurance policies for their young children in the first place. Back in 1991, after Chris died, Karl reached out to investigators to ask them if they believed he had set the fire. Though he claimed that he didn't, his explanation as to why is baffling, to say the least. He told the investigator that if he had set the fire, he would have burned up the kids, because he loved his wife a lot more than the kids, and they're driving him crazy. That comment was certainly disturbing, but Karl went even further and added that if the kids had gone, he would have $500,000.
Because I had insurance on me when I was growing up. My parents put on us.
He appears to be avoiding any real discussion about Chris, perhaps because he's afraid detectives will try to investigate her death. This is a very different manner in which he normally tells stories, leaving few details out, as he clearly loves to hear himself talk on topics that aren't incriminating.
Well, you remember how Levi's insurance was taken out pretty much soon before his death? Was that scenario?
No, it was farther than that.
The detective is asking this question because he's implying that Karl took an insurance policy out on Chris right before her death, which is similar to what happened with Levi. Karl knows the closer in time to Chris's death, the more suspicious it appears, so he will claim it was further out than it was.
What's your deceased wife's name?
Chris.
So about how long before do you think?
It's.
Was it like in other people's minds, like relatively soon?
It's got to be. I don't know. It's got to be. It's got to be like 3-4 months or something.
Oh, okay. So it was a significant. Well, actually, that's not a long time.
In actuality, the application was signed and the premium was collected on December 12th of 1990, just a mere 3 weeks before Cindy died in the fire.
So she was like 3 or 4 months. She's insured through your job, and then the fire occurs.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, and then.
It's striking.
Believe me, if anybody.
Were you thinking like, I can't believe how does this happen?
No, I'm like, and my I'm, you know how some people go through life, and no matter what happens, everything that can go wrong can go wrong.
That's Murphy's Law. You must be.
I lived in Murphy's, California.
Well, that must have been Murphy's Law.
And it's like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. You have got to be.
So did you go through the ringer because of that being a suspicious circumstance?
Well, no, it was the fact that she died at home and they got to go through the whole gauntlet.
Who's that?
The fire department. I never got invested by anybody else.
Oh, so where's the gauntlet?
Just them. I mean,
the fire department pushed through the gauntlet?
Because, well, they're fire investigators.
So it wasn't a criminal investigation?
No.
So there was no gauntlet. I just want to.
No, it just. I guess when you lose a spouse and you got 3 little kids and all of a sudden you lost it sounds bad. The shoes and clothes that I wore and the underwear I wore weren't mine.
Instead of saying anything about how it affected him to lose his wife and his kids to lose their mother, he's focused on himself and how he had to wear borrowed clothes.
People gave
after the fire?
Yeah, I lost everything. I lost vehicles. I lost every possession I owned.
What about her family was right there, right? Did they help you out?
Yeah, but I'm wearing borrowed clothes.
Yeah, no, that sucks.
I mean, I had a guy that I knew a little bit. He took me down, bought me
You
a
lost
pair of
all
boots.
your possessions.
Everything.
He mentions losing all of his possessions, but doesn't express anything to suggest that his wife was the most significant loss. Most people wouldn't be concerned with losing their things in a fire when their spouse has died in the same fire.
I'm burnt. You know, I got burns all over my face. My
Do you have
brain.
any pictures from the burns? Did you keep anything like that?
I don't. If I do, I don't know where.
Did you have to go to the hospital to get checked out?
Oh, they took me right to the hospital in ambulance. I mean, eyes were burnt shut.
He also talks about how he got burned, but doesn't mention any injuries his children may have had.
It's traumatic. It must be. We had a fire, but we got out.
You know what it felt like? It felt like somebody hit me in the face with 5 baseball bats at the same time.
You mean the fire? I'm talking about the loss of your wife.
Oh, well.
You must have had a hell of a loss with you were living in this place where there was a bathroom that had no window.
Right.
The detectives already know the bathroom had a boarded-up window, and are just slowly getting Karl to reveal the truth about the bathroom and the fact that it did have a window that he boarded up.
Did you? Have a lawsuit?
No, because they sued me. The homeowners sued me.
For what?
For burning down their freaking house. There was never any cause. There was the only thing they could say was kerosene. And
So did you acknowledge there was some sort of neglectful thing? Or?
No. They had no smoke detector for renting for California rental codes. They had nothing.
And I can't get over this. Was it like an old window? Or was
the window was like that big and it was boarded up.
You should have sued their asses off.
Oh, and I had...
Wait, did you board it up?
What's that?
Did you board it up?
Yeah, we had to because it was no good. But you couldn't fit out of it. You might be able to put a baby out of it. A baby. You and I, or a 80-pound woman, there's no way. You could...
Why'd you board it up?
Because it was all broken. Everything was shot. Oh, yeah. You know, and it's like the frame was shot, the frame of the house was shot. And
when did you board it up?
Like 8 months before.
Karl says he boarded up the bathroom window 8 months before the fire, but according to Colette, the window was still intact during her Christmas visit, just days before the fire occurred.
My family later on came out, got me, and brought me back home because I was just...
When did you
screwed up? A week and a half after she died.
It's no secret that Karl is answering questions untruthfully. For one, he says he moved a week and a half after Chris's death. In actuality, Karl and his children boarded a plane bound for his home state of New York on January 4th of 1991, only 3 days after Chris died.
Do you love Cindy?
I do. I really do. Even to this minute, she had her demons coming into the marriage, which was her alcohol. You know, but at the time, I never knew that.
Why would she try to set you up?
To get everything.
What?
The house.
But there's nothing though, really, right? I mean,
I got the farm. That's 300 and some thousand.
Okay.
Because she knew I was going to go after her for the house and the money for the girls. She has nothing.
Yeah. What's suspicious about Levi's death? In your opinion, what is suspicious about it?
To me?
To us. In your opinion, you're a smart guy. Why do you think we're suspicious of it?
I guess
your daughter's a cop, and she's a good cop, when you tell her. So she must get that from you, being an analytical person. So if you were in our seats...
I don't know. I mean, well, I guess you can look at it, you know.
What is suspicious?
I guess it was, I don't...
You see
I guess because I'm the last person that's seen him, and I had the insurance. Well, that's fine. There are a lot of people that way. You know? There are a lot of people that, you know, you're the last one to see him, and I understand legally what has got to be looked into. I'm not stupid. I'd say I'm not a rocket scientist, but in a way I am, yes.
Karl again displays his grandiose attitude by calling himself a rocket scientist. Narcissists think they're smarter and more important than they are, and they have no problem telling you so.
I understand what you're saying, believe me. I mean, I understand what you're looking at, And I don't know, like
There are some things that you don't know about.
At this point, Karl must be wondering what else the detectives have on him that they haven't yet revealed.
You were gone at the funeral. I'm sorry to interrupt you. How long were you and Cindy gone at the funeral?
over 4 hours.
4 hours.
4.5, maybe a little longer.
Think about that for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
The investigators are about to confront Karl and drop a bomb on his story.
Do you know how accurate they can do with the cause of death based on body temperature, atmospheric temperature?
All I know is what they tell me.
It's accurate. Within, 15 to 25 minutes?
Yeah, maybe.
So there's a big problem.
I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking 4.5, maybe a little longer, because I know it was after 11 o'clock when we left, I think. And we didn't get back till it was like right around, I think, 4:30 or so. Right in,
We revisited all those things and all the things that were done at that time of his death. And we've sent them in to many places. They go to the state police lab, the Monroe County lab. And analysis has been done. They can put it within a 15-minute window. I mean, it's not as precise as we'd like it to be, but basically, or specifically, it was before he left. He died.
When the detectives reveal to Karl that Levi was dead before Karl and his wife left for the funeral, he reaches his arms up to his chest and holds them there, which can be seen as a protective position. He then moves one hand to rub his chest and upper shoulder, which could be a self-soothing behavior to cope with his distress.
Indisputable, it's not up to us. We cannot argue about it. There's no room to argue. Is that Levi was dead. He may not have died in your, and I wish I could say he died in your presence. But when you walk back in there, if you're telling us the truth and saying you had a conversation with him, you're lying because he was dead at that time.
No, I had a conversation with him, I'll tell you that.
Okay. Well, he was either dead when you walked in there or as you walked out. That's fact.
No, well, I disagree because I know the conversation I had with him.
Unless the only way is if he died while you were there or before you came in. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I'm not sitting here speculating, but, couldn't you die 2 minutes after I walked out the door?
No, and that's the one thing that we beat them on.
Come on.
No, that's what we beat them on. We gave right in with a window based on Cindy and based on what you said, and the people who were there, like the fire crew and all that stuff, they were able to eliminate the possibility they died 2 minutes after, or 3 minutes. There's a window there, but when they reverse it. Well, and that's just a fact. That's kind of what it is.
I don't know what to tell you. I can't tell you something that isn't true.
Well, we don't want that.
I don't.
And I think, I think Tom I think Tom kind of took a leap of faith with you here.
And that's fine. I understand you guys are being as nice as you can about it and being as polite. I have nothing negative to say. I mean, yes, I cannot believe I'm in here. I can't believe that.
But there's something about Levi that haunts you, Karl. I know it does.
Well, the thing that haunts me about it is that your son dies.
Something more than that.
No, nothing else. Nothing else.
Cindy asked you, I know you have secrets. You come back with, so you think I killed Levi.
Oh, by the way, she said on her one message to me, she goes, I know.
And Karl, the game that you say you're playing, nobody plays that game. Nobody's going to come out and say, I caused the death of my son because I'm going to try and and
that's why I kept talking to the neighbors.
As Tom pointed out, what's the end game? There isn't any that makes sense.
Well, that's what I tried figuring out, is that what is she after?
I think you're afraid to tell us what really happened. I know. I know. And I don't know if it had to do with the drugs you were taking at the time. I don't know if it was because of what he was doing.
At that time in his life, he had turned around. At that time in his life, for probably the last 6-8 months.
Let me tell you something, Karl. Your tone of voice doesn't say that to me when you talk about him. We're not new at this. Come on.
I know, but I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your butt and tell you that,
Karl, my butt's smoking, man.
Well,
letting the pressure be bigger than you. You are not able to tell the truth right now.
Given all of the evidence and mounting pressure of the interrogation, he likely knows that with the physical evidence proving that Levi was deceased at the time Karl left the house, he has two options. 1, admit that he killed Levi, or 2, admit that he knew Levi was dead, but didn't have anything to do with it.
If you really truly felt like what you did was right, and which I think you did in a minute.
All right, I did not kill Levi. Oh, that's just a message. There's no way I could have. But he was dead when I went in there.
Okay. Tell us about that.
You're doing great, buddy.
He chooses the second option and admits Levi was dead. The lieutenant immediately stands up and pats Karl on the shoulder, showing approval of Karl's confession. He gives him some positive reassurance so he will continue opening up. More than 3 hours in, the detectives are now making progress.
You can do it. You can do it.
I couldn't kill my kid.
Let's talk about what happened.
I walked in there to, give him his money, and holy and I just blanked.
Hardest day of your life? Why'd you keep it a secret for so long?
What? Can I get enough glass of water?
Okay.
I couldn't get him. There's no f***ing way. It was an accident, and I blame myself every day, just like you said.
So when you went back in, he was
dead.
He was dead.
And I freaked. I just it didn't happen. There's no way. It's just, I would give my life for that kid.
Karl has now proven himself to be a liar, and he also places himself at the scene, which is a step in the right direction and likely enough for a conviction. The officers will continue to press him to see if they can get him to admit Levi's death was intentional.
But I f***ing freaked. And can you imagine telling your family?
Oh, I can't.
Can you imagine walking in? And a day later, 2 days later, and saying, and I know from being on a farm, a live animal compared to a dead animal.
So you knew he was dead when you walked in?
I reached out and touched his leg. I knew. I knew. And his legs were blue.
The lieutenant is sitting uncomfortably close to Karl for a prolonged period of time. While he appears to be very supportive, sometimes patting him on the shoulder and frequently using his name, the close proximity may also be putting pressure on Karl to confess. Also, the lieutenant is being very nice and understanding to make him feel like he's his ally, and will likely take on the role of good cop to another detective's bad cop.
No, I jacked it up to get him out when we come home.
Okay.
And all it was the jack is like this wide, narrow. Mm-hmm. And we had it under the front bumper. And the back two wheels were on the ground, so that's why it could teeter. But he must have been reefing on something because he still had the wrenches in his hands. I had to almost break his fingers to get the wrenches out of his hands when we come home. I could never kill my kid. I don't give a damn if you gave me $20 billion.
Karl, you've come this far, man. You're almost there. I know you pushed that truck.
I did not. No way in hell.
The lieutenant puts his hand on Karl's shoulder again and gently confronts him.
No way.
I know you did.
No, I didn't.
He wasn't dead when you...
I did not push the truck over. No way. There's no way. No way.
I don't think you want to believe it.
No, I know I didn't.
But I think you had a good reason, and I'd really like to know what that reason is.
I don't have a good reason because I didn't do it.
Notice how quickly Karl goes from crying and making unemotional denials.
And maybe it was... I don't know. I really like to know because...
No, I didn't. I will never say I did because I didn't.
So you came in there and you found him dead. And you went back out with Cindy and spent 4.5 hours...
And all I could do was
just
think
living
about
with that.
It would be very unusual for someone in a state of panic about finding their child dead to then act normally for 4+ hours. especially at a funeral, which may amplify one's thoughts about death, only to return home to act shocked and devastated, doesn't really make sense.
You don't know how hard it was. It's just like it didn't happen. It was like...
Something you said to Cindy really stuck in my head, Carl. And it made me, I don't know, I kind of admire you for it. There was a time when you were talking to her, one of your conversations, and you said, what I did, having to live every day, was harder than anything else.
Oh,
Harder than if someone had killed me.
I could never, what I seen that day and what I didn't do for him, I could never change. I can never change. How do I tell my family? How do I tell my kids that, oh, geez, he was dead and I walked away? How do you do that?
Oh, I can see where that would be difficult.
You know, because every day it's in your head that I left him there when he needed me most. Yes, it killed him about as instant when you have a truck dropped on you, and when it fell, that's a lot of weight. I'm not stupid.
I appreciate you being truthful with us in the fact that he was dead before you left there. But here's the problem. You made a decision. There's no way you came out of that building having just been shocked with the fact that your son was dead. And nobody picks up on it. Unless you knew it was going to happen.
No.
It's impossible to believe.
I'm sorry.
You're selling yourself short.
I'm not going to sit here and I am not going to tell you I had anything to do with it.
I want nothing but the truth, and my partner wants the same thing.
Notice the way he frames the statement. I'm not going to sit here and tell you. He doesn't say he didn't do it. He just says that he won't tell them he did.
This is what I'm telling you right now.
You made a decision that day?
I made a decision to walk out on my son and not get him up from underneath the truck.
Why?
I panicked.
Why, though? It's a great question.
I panicked. I just like...
Carl?
I panicked.
Believe me, when we look like at the reports and the deputy's report and things you said and the way you acted when the deputies arrived, that just doesn't...
How did I act when the deputies arrived? I was bawling like a freaking baby.
The lieutenant confronts Karl with evidence that contradicts his version of events. They will keep doing this throughout the interrogation to reveal the strength of evidence against him in the hopes he loses resolve and confesses.
Right. 4 hours later.
Yeah, 4.5 hours later.
Because I finally pulled him out and seen his face. And that just...
Carl,
it all come out.
You're getting so close to me.
I'm not going to tell you I had anything to do with it. I'm not. So
well, I know you're trying to...
I can't. I'm not going to tell you something I didn't do.
Well, we don't ever make any mistake in here.
Oh, I know.
Don't ever misconstrue what we want here. We only want the truth.
I'm the one that jacked it up, and I live with that every freaking day.
Karl will only admit that he made the choice to jack up the truck. The detective exits the room again, leaving the lieutenant alone with Karl. It may feel less confrontational for Karl to be able to talk to someone one-on-one, and the detectives may feel Karl will be more likely to confess the actual truth.
It should have been me under there. You know, you live, I mean...
Well, I think that you probably really think that. I think you really wish that it was you.
I do. Look at me. I'm a train wreck.
I don't think you're a bad person.
And it's like, there's nothing that can justify killing your wife, your kids, your uncles, your parents, It
may have been a slip of the tongue when Karl stated, there's nothing that can justify killing your wife, your kids, your uncles, your parents. At this point, he's been in the interrogation room talking for several hours, so it's not surprising that he may have messed up. It's possible that as soon as he let the word wife slip out, he realized his mistake, so he added in uncles and parents to try to throw the detective off.
I mean, it'd be different if you killed
I didn't say you killed your wife.
No, I don't, but I'm just saying, that's why I'm saying wife, kids, whatever.
Karl, did you?
No, I already been through that. No, hell no, and no way in hell. With losing Levi, we finally got him going in life. And Cindy and I talked about it. I said, finally. It's like the load's lifted off. We don't have to babysit him. I don't know how many times we went down to the sheriff's department and bailed his ass out of trouble, paying fines. I mean, thousands of dollars in fines. And it's like, holy crap, you know? And
Well, didn't he have I thought I saw when we were going over the past stuff, I thought he caused a CPS report to be blown in on you too, for something like
he called
saying
all
you
the
got,
time.
yeah, they hit him or something, and
Oh yeah, well I hit him.
then there was one about because there was some kind of fight because he accused you of killing his mother or something like that.
No.
I saw something like that. I don't know.
No.
It's strange how Levi once accused Karl of killing his mother in the fire, but then years later, Levi agrees to take out life insurance and have Karl as the sole beneficiary. This oddity is never brought up in this interrogation. The reasons why Levi would trust his father as the sole beneficiary after accusing Karl of killing his mother may never be known. Levi may have trusted his father later in life, as most sons do, regardless of the struggles and abuse he experienced in the past. It's also possible Karl lied to Levi about who would benefit from the life insurance payout.
That had to be kind of maddening to have CPS show up because he keeps making shit up.
The lieutenant is providing another motive as to why Karl may have wanted to kill Levi, beyond the money. In Karl's mind, Levi was responsible for getting him in trouble with the CPS. This may be another reason why Karl chose to kill Levi and have his death versus his other kids be the one he profits from.
Let me tell you what I think, because about this whole thing, and I'm not asking you to say anything, but this is my opinion.
As soon as the detective says he wants to tell Karl what he thinks, Karl leans forward and faces slightly away from him. This body language indicates that he wants to avoid whatever the detective is about to say. He's also trying once again to garner sympathy by breathing heavily, like he is in pain. It could also be related to a fight or flight response, which would increase the body's need for oxygen.
As an outsider, you know what? There are some strange circumstances in your life. You know, your wife.
I know.
That's bizarre.
Believe me, I know. I have lived with everything, and it's like, you know.
That's bizarre.
We all laugh about that.
I would never find any reason to laugh at it.
This is a rather disturbing statement, as there's nothing funny about losing both his wife and his son in freak accidents.
I want to go back to this because this is...
I've never read it, so...
No. Have you seen it before?
No.
Do you know what it's about?
No.
The lieutenant returns with food for Karl, but he refuses it. Nonetheless, this is a gesture of goodwill, and also necessary so we can't say he was treated inhumanely there without food or water. Also, the more at ease Karl feels, the more likely he'll be to open up.
You were the catalyst to helping your son get this insurance. That's what this says.
Karl's claims contradict a witness statement from Levi's life insurance agent, Anthony, also referred to as Tony. In his statement, Tony said that Karl was the spokesperson for Levi when they went to get him insured.
I think Tony wrote that or something.
Yeah, that's kind of what it kind of says. It was like you were bringing
I do
it
look
up.
like don't I?
How bad the drugs must have been.
The lieutenant scoots his chair in close to Karl again, aligning himself next to Karl and away from the other detective. This is likely done to make Karl feel like he's on his side, and Karl can trust him. He's joking, laughing with him, and touching him like he's his pal.
That's not that bad.
He becomes much thinner.
Thanks.
He just looks thinner, I think.
Oh, I was a lot thinner. This is when I was really cooking with drugs.
I don't know. That kind of thing's a slightly different picture.
Well, I just got some more news that we should talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Now the lieutenant reveals another piece of evidence that he claims they just received. In actuality, this is untrue and just a tactic to make Karl uneasy and wonder if more things will continue to come out.
I had somebody interview this person.
Okay.
All right. And he says, right or wrong, just what he's saying, he says that you knew about the accidental part of the policy.
See, I can't remember.
Right.
I did. I can't.
But here's the thing. All right, now that's now a matter of record.
Right. Well, that's
so
fine.
he discussed it with you.
Nevertheless, the lieutenant mentions the fact that Karl knew about the accidental death rider when he helped Levi sign up for the policy. Notice how Karl immediately leans away from the detective as he says this. He wants to put distance between himself and this seemingly new information, which is putting him in a negative light.
It's starting to look more and more like the insurance angle.
I know.
Which is why I think
he did it for insurance.
Well, I know you keep saying that, Tom,
but in black and white, yeah, it's what it's.
But you know what? I think that if you're going to help yourself, I think you need to explain, Karl, because Like I said, you and I are already on, we're agreeing to disagree on the one thing that I know you had something to do with it.
But
if you're gonna let it go in this direction.
No, I don't want it to go in that direction. It's
going on its own. We're not making it go in that direction.
I don't know what to tell you.
I mean,
I've been spending the last couple weeks talking to her and thinking about things, and it's like.
Well, I know you wanted to get behind her back.
Well, and
you said you loved her, and I think you do.
And a lot of it was, and this is sad to say, I almost believed her that if I said what she wanted to hear, that she would take me back.
Well, why would anybody want to hear that?
Karl refuses to accept blame and now tries to claim illogically that he confessed to his wife so she would take him back. This makes no sense, and he's getting desperate to come up with excuses.
How long was she in Levi's life?
Since he was 7.
Okay, so there's no way you thought that she wanted to hear that. She wanted to hear the truth, is what I'm assuming. I can't imagine you think that a mother wants to hear a child.
That's the thing. That's why I kept talking to the neighbors.
He's trying to build credibility and make his story more believable by claiming that he talked to his neighbors about Cindy setting him up. This is the exact strategy he used earlier on the same topic, except he had talked to his daughter about it.
I talked to my daughter, and my daughter's like, she is setting you up. It's like...
Yes, but Karl, she never actually come out and said that you killed Levi. You did.
I know.
She didn't bring it up.
Yeah, but you could tell. That's why I kept fishing for more.
So why didn't you just tell her, hey, the truth is, he was dead when I walked in there?
Because could you admit it?
When asked why he didn't just tell his wife the truth, that Levi was dead when he walked in, Karl responded, "Could you admit it?" Karl's story doesn't make logical sense, that it was easier to tell his wife a lie that he killed Levi rather than the truth that Levi was dead when he walked in.
Since I've been on all the medicine, there's times that I drive in a car and I get lost. And I get freaking panic attacks. If I can't find my way out, it's like, you almost want to say, I want my mother. And it's to do with the medicine.
He's trying to give the detective evidence that he panicked when he found Levi dead, because he's a man who has a history of panicking. However, someone having a panic attack would not be able to go 4.5 hours of acting normally, like Karl apparently did, after he found Levi dead. Panic attacks are also short-lived, usually lasting from a few minutes, but possibly up to an hour.
I mean, there's a lot to do. I mean, and I don't mean to keep coming back and bragging it up, but I went through 4 or 6 years of being stoned. I mean, you guys, check my medical records, whatever, you probably will, but...
Probably already did.
Well, probably, I mean, it was tough, and it's like, it's tough. It's tough.
Karl is likely mentioning this repeatedly as a last resort defense if he has no way to say he didn't do it. He doesn't know what evidence the police have against him.
I've been around long enough to know that there's circumstances where a parent might have to do that.
Yeah, but it's not...
I don't know what I would... If I had one of my kids and I knew that their life was going to be miserable because of the choices they were making, I might make that same call.
The lieutenant is trying to normalize what Karl did by saying he's seen it before in his career and that he may have made the same choice if he was in his position. None of this is true, as it's pretty rare to see a father kill his own child for insurance money. A spouse, maybe, but a child is rather rare. Most children don't even have life insurance until they themselves have a spouse or children. They would likely have the beneficiary be their own family, not their parent.
But to sit here and say that I killed him, no.
Well, like I said, I don't want to use that word because...
No, but it is. It's what it's all about.
I think that...
Or took his life, whatever you want to say. But
yeah, took his life, or took advantage, and I don't want to say advantage like it was something you got gained from, but saw a circumstance where it could be done humanely and quickly and did it. Because I'll tell you what, Karl, there's a part of you that's pretty hard. It's deep down. I don't know what happened to you when you grew up. Hard. I think you can be hard when you have to be. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, there's some people in this world that are capable of making very hard decisions and taking hard action. There's some people who aren't. Most people aren't. There's 1% of the population can do
horrific things
when it's necessary.
The lieutenant is describing what is, in actuality, his psychopathic personality as a positive thing to help him admit to being this type of person.
And that happens in the military. It happens.
Right, and I think
I think some of it may be, I know you didn't grow up with the best of situations.
I mean, we as hard as we worked, we played just as hard. We had snowmobiles, we raced them, we went to Disney World many, many times. We went to Daytona races. We did a lot. But as kids, we worked a lot. I mean, yes, have I had a tough life? Yes. Have I had a good life? Yes. I've got good kids. I've got grandkids. And you know, this situation with Levi, like I say, it's.
Well, I would really appreciate it if you tell me what really happened in that garage, because you and I both know that there's something else that happened, and.
No,
I would really appreciate it if you would tell me about it. And I know, Karl, I'll tell you something, a little quid pro quo here. You know what that means?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
I tell you something, you tell me something. I had one of my kids once was really sick. And you know what, if I could have helped that suffering, I would have taken her life.
The detective is trying to normalize what Karl did by saying that he himself would have taken his own child's life if it meant it would stop her suffering. He's trying to make it easier for Karl to admit to killing Levi.
No, I mean, if something like that, but the thing is Levi was turning around.
Karl's response is odd, to say the least. Whether Levi's life was turning around or not shouldn't dictate whether he should or shouldn't kill him. A new detective by the name of Jeff Arnold enters the room.
How are you doing?
No, we haven't met before. I don't think we actually did a long time ago. I don't think you remember me.
No clue.
Jeff Arnold. I worked out in Ontario County. I'm an investigator in Ontario County.
Not quite sure. Don't mind me. I
think I met you. He feels better if he stands up.
I move a lot.
I met you. It was within days of your son's death.
Yeah,
I was investigating a matter involving your granddaughter. Did you ever hear anything about that? Okay. Let me just tell you what I'm here for, and then I'll let these guys talk in a bit. I just drove down from Ontario County. Can you sit for a couple minutes so I can just talk? It's tough to talk.
Do you need me to step out, or?
Yeah, I don't see if you don't mind.
The detective asked the lieutenant to step out. They do this to change up the dynamic, once again, keeping Karl uncomfortable. Remember, interrogators want to be able to control the stress levels of the suspect, and this is another strategy to manage that. It's about using whatever means they think will work on that suspect to extract as much information in the shortest amount of time.
This is an old case going back to November 18th, 2008. Do you remember anything about that day, a couple days before Levi's death?
No.
Do you remember what was going on in the life of your grandkids back then?
Levi would bring them out at times, and I know they were in a nasty divorce, and you know, it was over at that time, I believe. But they were, you know, they were still fighting.
Did anybody ever discuss my investigation with you back a long time ago?
Probably not. Not that I know of.
About
what?
We never talked to you or Cindy about it because of the death of your son momentarily. Your granddaughter was years old at the time. I don't know what type of relationship you had with her, but she'd been. And there was always a belief on Cassie's part that you knew about it.
Oh, no.
And it was pretty clear indication that your son was involved in it. And
no.
She always believed that you knew about it.
No.
Karl doesn't appear to be surprised by the information that Levi was allegedly involved in assaulting his own daughter. Although he denied knowing or ever hearing about it before, he had been speaking so highly of Levi during the entire interrogation, so it's strange that he doesn't appear shocked by this accusation, or even try to defend Levi's memory by saying that it can't be true. It's possible that he isn't surprised because something like this isn't out of character for Levi, which is a direct contradiction to what he's been telling the other two detectives. It's also possible that perhaps he already knew about this allegation, but for some reason thinks he shouldn't admit to knowing, or it could even be that he's such a callous person he doesn't really care.
If I knew about it and it was him, that he never mentioned we never knew anything.
Well, she believes it. She's always believed that you were aware of it.
Never.
And that he talked to you about it because we were coming after him.
We never knew a thing. Never knew a thing. He never talked to me about it.
Well,
because
if you did or didn't, it's surely not a crime. But we don't close out these investigations, and whether it was him or somebody else, or we obviously don't know. So. Pardon me?
Was it founded that did she go, they take her to the...
No, I can't get into all the details of that.
Was it an accusation or was it...
Oh, no, it was more than an accusation.
Okay.
I surely wouldn't be here for it.
Right. I didn't know, but no, we never...
It's important to note that it isn't clear if there was actual evidence of Levi assaulting his daughter, or if this is just an interrogation tactic.
Because we were seeing the kids actually pretty much every week and a half to every 2 weeks. He would bring them by, or we would get them for the day, or they would spend the nights for sometimes 2 or 3 nights. We would have them a lot. And nobody ever made us the wiser of...
What was your son... Did you ever show any indication of anything like that when he was growing up? Did he ever...
No.
Abuse of animals or anything?
No.
It seems the detective is trying to posit a motive that Karl killed Levi because Levi allegedly assaulted his own daughter.
He was never abused as a child. He was never...
Well, you guys had some issues, though.
Oh, well...
let me...
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me backtrack. Let's talk about some of those issues, because I got involved in this case. I don't know if you realize this, but this investigation of theirs has been going on for several months.
No, I didn't know
about
that.
Again, I'm telling you that I'm telling the truth on that.
Okay.
That this isn't something that came overnight. So when I was alerted to it, I've interjected a little bit here and there. Got to understand this investigation pretty well. Don't know all the details of it, but I do know that you and Levi had quite a few confrontations.
Well, and his mother. So it was the 3 of us.
Correct.
The new detective may be trying to get Karl to admit to problems in his relationship with Levi. Because if Karl admits to something small like that, it can make it easier for him to admit to something bigger. It's likely the detective is also trying to prove that Karl has not been truthful to the other detectives about Levi's issues.
But the ones I'm talking about is, I found a couple reports from Sheriff's Department reports where you and Levi had almost physical confrontations where the sheriffs were called. Do you recall those?
Well, he told him one time that I beat him up so bad that he was spitting blood.
First one was back in 2000, where he reported you threatened to kill him. Do you remember that? That's what's on the sheriff's report?
No.
Do you remember why? What was the cause of the anger?
I don't even...
He was probably like 13, 14 years old.
I don't know.
Was he an outrageous punk in your family?
No. He was one that he would lie, steal. He stole $300-400 from his sister and wouldn't admit it. Well, the school's saying, why's Levi got all these dollar bills and he's handing them out to everybody?
Right.
My daughter worked as a waitress. So he come home and Erin's like pissed because all her money's missing. And it's all mostly $1 bills. So he wouldn't say nothing, so I set him in a chair in the living room and I said, we're going to sit here till you tell me what you did with the money. I said, I know you got it, I know you spent it, and you've been giving it to kids at school. Finally, he come clean, and I didn't punish him. I said, you're going to have to tell your sister you took her money. That killed him. There was another one where he called the ex-wife, or Cindy, effing da-da-da-da-da, and something else. She called me and said, geez.
She called your wife a what?
Levi called my wife effing blah, blah, blah. And,
how old is he then?
16, 17.
He put your wife through 11
He put all of us. And so,
now, other than that, you say he put his wife, it sounds like he was not a good kid growing up.
The detective is trying to demonize Levi to get Karl to admit his true feelings about Levi.
He wasn't bad. He stayed.
If I called my mother,
that would
have been my last day of life.
That was his only one time that he ever said that to her.
But how did you handle it?
Well, I called him up and I said, "What did you just say to your mother?"
Was he not living at home?
No, at this time. And I said, "What the hell did you?" He said, "Well, she won't give me my money and she's bitching and this and that." And I said, "You will never, ever talk to her like that again." He had quit school, and a couple of his buddies quit school, so he wasn't into drugs that I know of.
Your son, I've done an extensive amount of work on him.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't that nice of a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he may have had some qualities that were okay.
But, well, the thing is, though, as far as what he ever told me.
The dark side of him, there was a dark side of him. If your father was like my father, he'd have kicked your ass to the moon.
He wouldn't have wasted a bullet on you because he would have beat you to death.
Right. That's my point that I'm saying.
Yeah, and
the realization
at the point, we'd already been through the child protective enough to where...
I'm not here going to tell you, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I had a love affair with your son Levi. I'm not telling you that Levi was a great kid.
No.
So I'm not going to be like...
But what I'm saying, though, is that we knew that if I laid a hand on him, which our dads would have beat us to death, CPS is going to have me by the balls because...
In today's world, probably right.
But even back when he was doing it, because he turned us in, and it's like, so now I can't, and I asked
CPS. He turned into CPS, did he?
Oh, many times. And every time he...
Tell me that didn't make your life live in hell.
But every time he turned us in, it was proven not guilty. Every time, every time.
Yeah, still report on your record, though.
Yeah.
It's there forever.
And I says, it's not fair that we get accused of something. It stays on our record, and he gets to walk home clean because he lied. And they said, well, that's the system. And there was one time that he grabbed me, I grabbed him. We never punched. We just had a hold of each other.
How old was he then?
17 and a half. And I said, look, I says, you're done. Out of the house, don't come back till you're ready.
Multiple accounts allege that Karl was very abusive toward his children. A statement from Cindy dated April of 2012 references 2 occasions when Child Protective Services became involved in altercations between Levi and Karl. According to Cindy, Karl would hit Levi. Also within a statement, Levi's older sister Erin explains that Levi was Karl's preference when it came to beating the children. Erin stated, "I had it bad, but Levi got it worse." Erin's words would prove to be quite the understatement in the end.
He finally started changing his ways and was doing better, and I says, all right, go down and put an application in, and I'll talk to him. And I did, and I put my reputation on the line, which at that time I was almost like God down there,
Once again, Karl displays his narcissistic traits. Not only does he show a lack of empathy for his son, but he also appears to think he's better or superior to others. He even states that at work he was almost like God. Of course, many would find this claim to be quite disputable.
And he was doing fantastic. Fantastic.
Tom was telling me about a fire with your first wife that concerned him back in, what year was that?
90. Maybe 90, 91, I think, 91.
Okay. So that fire caused the death of your wife, correct?
Right.
And the fire, according to him, it started because you spilled kerosene in front of the bathroom?
Well, the dog and the wife did.
The dog and the wife spilled kerosene?
She carried kerosene in for the kerosene heaters we had.
So the dog tipped the kerosene over. Right. Was that how the fire started?
No, it spilled, and then the fire never happened for like 2 weeks maybe.
So, but 2 or 3 weeks prior to kerosene spills?
And we cleaned it all up. I mean, we soaked it.
I thought the kerosene caused the fire. What caused the fire?
They never really, the only thing they aimed is because she had a load of clothes in the dryer.
And that was a gas dryer, you said,
yes.
Right? You sure it's gas?
I was also working up in the attic that day.
In the house?
Yeah, because there's a...
Could have something dropped, like a light?
Well, I had a trouble light they found on the floor.
Oh, so you think maybe that trouble light fell down?
And that's what they checked. Right where the fire was is where the light was.
Evidently, he laid the light out here.
Oh, it wasn't a fire. There's no criminal charge.
Karl throws in the statement that there were no criminal charges regarding the fire. This isn't responsive to a question and seems to come out of nowhere. Again, this shows a consciousness of guilt.
Where's the front door and porch? Can you draw that on there for me?
The detective has Karl draw a map of the home and how he went into the house to pull his kids out. This is done to get his testimony clearly on record. This is a step in the Reed technique to reduce things to writing or maps to make the interrogation answers more concrete and undeniable. The detective may also be having Karl draw out a map of his house and talk about the fire in order to try to catch inconsistencies with which to confront him.
So you come up on his porch here?
I come up to the porch because I was going to go in there, but I couldn't even see through the glass. There was a glass door.
So you didn't open the door here?
I didn't open the door. His window was right there, so I just punched the screen, and then bang.
And then you get hit with a flash.
Karl appears to be very comfortable telling the story about the fire, and he doesn't appear to be rattled by any of the questions about what happened that day. He's probably told this story many times. He may even enjoy telling it because he likely believes that it proves that he is such a brave man, risking his life to save his children.
Did the insurance company ever do an interview with you? Because typically they never did an interview with you with lawyers and stuff? Because typically on a payout of insurance, they do an extensive...
No, not a thing. It was ruled accidental. Boom, boom, boom. I'm burnt. I'm tired. I'm hurt. I'm wearing clothes from everybody that has donated them. And somebody took the kids. I didn't see the kids for 2 or 3 days.
Really?
Yeah, because I was a wreck.
Once again, Karl is making the tragedy all about him, rather than thinking about his children or his wife. He doesn't even mention how he lost his wife or the kids lost their mother.
What did you do when your brother and sister-in-law came home?
Cried.
I mean, where did you sit? Did you sit around the house? Or?
I laid on the couch folded into a bed, and I slept on it for 2 days.
And you stayed right there until the minute you came back to New York, or did you finally get up and do anything?
No, I stayed right there.
You didn't even get to...
I mean, we had funeral and all that stuff and everything else, but I just...
That was it?
You know, I was trying to heal up myself, but I was a freaking train wreck.
While he tries to paint himself as such a caring family man, his actions speak otherwise. A man who tragically just lost his wife and risked his own life to save his young children likely wouldn't choose to nurse his wounds alone and not see his kids for days right after the accident.
Tom was saying there was some of his concerns he was telling me tonight is that there were some other fires, like a car fire you had and a barn fire and cow fire or something.
Yeah, I had a barn fire, but they proved that was...
What was the barn fire?
It ended up being... The barn had cloth wiring in it.
Karl retells his story of what caused the barn fire that killed his horses to the detective. He again blames faulty cloth wiring.
According to Tom, there was a large insurance policy on that also.
All I got was $60,000. That was with...
Oh, I thought you said it was like $100,000 because you had like the animals insured for like $30,000.
No, I had one animal insured for $20,000. She was the largest mare in the world, 3,200 pounds. Never won like that.
So that must have been more expensive horse. How much was that horse worth?
A lot.
Would you pay for that?
Realistically, she's probably worth about $80,000 to $100,000.
What Karl doesn't realize is that the interrogators are well aware that Karl's prized horse was infertile. Because the horse couldn't have offspring for Karl to make a profit on, he found another way to make money, through insurance fraud.
When do you put the more insurance on the barns? How long prior to the fire was this?
It was 3 months, 4 months.
Now you've got me totally confused here.
When I come back...
You're sleeping. Let's just back.
Yeah,
you're sleeping, and you get up at what time, remember?
It was probably 11 o'clock, midnight, maybe, if it wasn't even that.
The detective establishes a timeline for the fire involving the horse barn. He's reducing this to writing so he can make sure it's solidified in case it doesn't match the evidence or his prior statements.
I said, call 911 or call the fire department or something, and they said, call the brothers, because I had 5 other brothers.
One item to note regarding the barn fire and a statement from Karl's own brother Curtis, who was a career firefighter and also responded to the fire. Curtis requested that the fire chief do an investigation due to his own suspicions about the fire. The chief declined, but Curtis knew something about that fire just wasn't right. Karl's M.O. is becoming very clear. He takes out an insurance policy, waits a matter of weeks, an accident occurs. Then, as the primary beneficiary, he gets a large payout. This seems to be the only thing he cares about. He has no issue trading the lives of animals, wives, or kids for money. The detective now proceeds to question Karl on another fire.
Let's just cover a couple of the fires that Tom had mentioned that he was concerned about. Was there one that you had a car back in 1996?
Oh no, it was back in
86.
Karl discusses a car he had that suspiciously caught on fire in his driveway.
I bought a brand new Dodge Charger, 2.2.
Payments on it?
Yeah. And, I mean, I put money down and everything.
Right.
And, it was just months old. Took it back, saying we're smelling gas.
How'd it burn? Driving up the road?
No, it was in my driveway.
Just sitting there and burned up?
Got home, shut it off, walked in the house, and I went upstairs. She yells out, "The car's on fire," which was like...
The car caught on fire.
He also said that the fire department report said that you had removed all the contents from it just before the fire?
No.
No, that's not true.
No.
The detective is gently confronting Karl using evidence from the fire department that proves this was likely arson, and he still continues to deny it.
You seem very truthful when you say that.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's like, what the hell would be in it?
You know why a fireman would have wrote that up on a report?
No.
I haven't read the report.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think I ever talked to anybody, really.
As Cindy had grown more and more suspicious of Karl, she started to reach out to her family to see if they recalled anything about him that might have triggered alarm bells. Her brother remembered a story that Karl told him about how his parents had owned peacocks that would pull up the flowers and leave messes on the porch. The peacocks suddenly started going missing, and Karl told everyone that he had seen a fox, and it was likely killing the peacocks. However, Karl's father accused a relative of shooting them and threatened to call the sheriff's office if he could prove it. The relative was distraught at the accusation, but Karl allowed them to take the blame, even though he'd been killing the peacocks one by one, for no reason except to perhaps get back at his father. In another disturbing instance, Karl killed geese on the property, and his father once again blamed the relative for shooting them. In fact, Karl admitted to Cindy's brother that while killing the geese, he hit one of the animals on the side of the head, and it flopped around for a bit. So Karl picked up and swung it around and wrung its neck. Cindy was horrified to find out that she had lived with Karl for 18 years and not realized he could be so cruel. The detective brings up an intriguing new fact.
Did you work for the fire department back then?
I used to be, back in high school, a volunteer fireman for the Varick Fire Department.
How long were you fireman for?
3-4 years, maybe.
It's quite surprising that Karl used to be a volunteer fireman, given the fact that he experienced 3 accidental fires: his car, his barn, and his house. As a volunteer fireman, he would have gained important knowledge about how to safely put fires out, how to rescue people from fires, and possibly how the cause of fires can be traced after the fact. It's strange that he never mentioned his fire training during the interrogation when he was telling detectives about the fire in which his wife died. In fact, he doesn't appear to have much knowledge about fires when he's giving details about his house fire. He likely doesn't want to draw attention to the fact that he had fire training, as that could make things look more suspicious. Believe it or not, it is fairly common for arsonists to be well aware about fire safety. In fact, there is an estimated 100 arrests of firefighters who are charged with arson every year in the United States. The detective brings up yet more fires to discuss.
Was there a fire at Guardian Glass before you left there?
Yeah.
What happened with that fire?
We had a fire out on one of my trains there that the mechanic left a rag on top of the exhaust manifold.
Started that fire?
No, it just singed it.
Any other fires?
No, not that I know of.
Wait, your son, how about, I remember when I was looking at Levi years ago.
Levi had a house fire.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
He said it was classified as an arson, but was Levi working that night? Or do you think he could have set that fire?
They never should have owned the house.
Piece of junk right next to the road. 10 feet from the road.
10 feet from the road.
If my kid owned that house, we'd be having some words.
Well, we did. He comes over, he's like,
It's a July, do you ever see that movie, The Money Pit?
Yes.
Remember that house that was impossible to fix up, and even if they gave it to you for free, you were going to go bankrupt fixing it up?
Well, it's like...
Well, Levi and his wife, Cassie, was the money pit, wasn't
Yeah,
that?
but what I do is I blame the people who sold it. I said, who in their right mind, and it's one of those houses...
But it was the money pit, was it not?
It was worse than that. It should have been condemned.
The detective is establishing a motive for Karl wanting to burn it down as it was a money pit. It's shocking that Karl wasn't investigated as a serial arsonist years ago, as no one has this many incidents of accidental fires in their family.
Do you remember where you were the night of that fire? Were you around that night?
I have no idea. I didn't know about the fire for 2 or 3 days.
His claim that he didn't know about the fire for days is extremely hard to believe, as Levi seemed very reliant on Karl. A fire such as that would be heard about in a small rural town like Clifton Springs, New York.
You know,
Did you know it was classified as an arson fire?
Never knew anything about it. I never heard a report, nobody talked to us, nothing.
It was classified as an arson, and it's hard to say if he did this or if his son just learned from his father how to get money and get rid of a liability.
Do you know where your son and daughter-in-law were then?
They were working.
They were both working?
They were both working, and I think the kids were at her mother's, as far as I know.
According to Cassie, Levi's ex-wife, Karl was angry the young couple bought the home after all.
I got a funny feeling we were in North Carolina at the time the fire happened.
Oh, you were in North Carolina?
I think we were in North Carolina, because that's why I think we didn't hear about it for...
Well, if you're in North Carolina, you feel it had anything to do with it then, right?
Oh, no, I did not have anything to do with it.
I think there's a thought that you were so disgusted with him buying this house that...
Why would I do that? Come on.
I didn't say that.
No,
I'm saying
but...
the thoughts there, so...
No, I didn't know anything about any of his business money-wise. I don't know what they paid.
How much money was Levi making?
With overtime and stuff, he was probably bringing home $500-600 a week. Plus you get your bonuses.
600 weeks?
Karl changes his story about his involvement in Levi's finances, now claiming he knew nothing about them. The detective begins asking him about Levi's death and what he and the other detective and lieutenant spoke about. He already knows and is asking just to see how Karl retells it.
I think they're looking at it either I did it or it's for the money. And it's bullcrap.
The detective now explicitly ties together all the insurance payouts Karl got, so he's forced to see the obviousness of his M.O.
Levi was a healthy young man?
He got pneumonia when he was like 18. They called me and said, your kid's in the emergency room. And he wasn't in Geneva Hospital long, and his lungs collapsed.
Really?
And they took him up to Rochester.
He was 18 years old?
Yeah.
Did he have any other health issues that would prevent him from getting that life insurance policy?
No, not that I know of at all. He told me what he wanted to do. He, told Tony what he wanted, and we did it. And I told him, I'll pay the first premium.
He can't afford to pay for it that day?
No, he didn't have anything on.
He doesn't have any money?
And to start it, you gotta...
What do you mean he didn't have anything on?
He didn't have any cash on him, not that amount.
Did he have a checkbook with him?
No, he didn't have a checkbook.
Did he have the money in the bank back home?
I don't know.
Probably not, right?
I don't know. But he had money.
So why did you offer to pay for it?
He didn't have any money with him, and the guy needed his checks.
Karl can't logically explain why Levi couldn't pay for the first insurance payment, which was only $300. It's likely Karl agreed to pay for Levi's insurance if he was the beneficiary, knowing he would only be making one payment.
He has to have a physical before it's legal.
Well, you knew that his policy his policy was good up until the day he got his policy.
I never knew that.
Okay.
I thought I was told that you have to get this before it, everything's here, we got the check, we can do this, but it doesn't go forward till you get the medical insurance policy.
And who told you that?
I thought that's what we discussed that day.
That Chrissy guy.
Right, and then with my insurance that I have on me, it was the same way. I mean,
How much life insurance did you have on you?
I have 300 on me.
Okay.
But the wife doesn't have any on her, anything like that.
Your wife ever have any on her?
No.
So
the way she always
Cindy never had any life insurance policy on her?
No. The way she always...
And did you have one on? Did you have one on her?
No. No.
So there's never insurance policy on Cindy?
No. The only thing I had on me was...
Not a universal life, a whole life, or a term life? Nothing to do with life insurance on Cindy?
Nothing at all.
So if she would have died, you would have collected nothing?
Right.
Most interesting of all in this section, Karl states there is no policy on Cindy. In actuality, however, Karl holds a $1.2 million policy on her. Based on Karl's track record, the thought of another policy on a loved one is alarming. However, not as alarming as what you'll soon learn. Take a listen to what Karl has to say next.
How about your granddaughters? Was there a policy on your granddaughters that had life insurance policy?
I think we did, but that was the way Tony... I'm trying to think here. My mind's going to think. We paid like $6,000 or $7,000 to get their life insurance started. That ended after so many years. You wouldn't have to pay into it.
Right. That's what would be called a universal life or a whole life policy.
Karl now reveals the chilling fact that he has life insurance policies on his granddaughters. These are very young children, and it's extremely rare to have them insured. They were likely targets for Karl as well, and may have been killed next had Karl needed money again. Karl clearly has an inflated ego and may have thought he was too smart to get caught. In his mind, he'd already gotten away with multiple fires and insurance payouts with no legal repercussions. So he may have had a plan to continue down this road. One trait of a psychopath is living a parasitic lifestyle. Although this is commonly thought of as an indulged adult child mooching off their parents, Karl relying on insurance money to fund his life could be seen as parasitic as well.
Can you give me an accounting of how much money did you get? Like $700,000?
$700,000.
A little bit over 700, right? 715, 710?
I don't know. This is what he wanted to do, so...
he wanted you to get a lot of it.
Yes, and which was like... And he knew I would do anything for these kids.
Right. How was your finances at the time of Levi's death?
Not bad. I mean, I was working. She was
You had money in the bank, you were good?
Yep.
You weren't looking at selling the house, the farm to get out of anything?
No.
Okay.
The farm.
So there was you had a nice retirement account set up at that time?
Yep, and farm
at the time of Levi's death, how much money did you and your wife have in your retirement accounts?
80 something. Well, it was over 100, and then the stock market took the...
In 2008, it went right about the same time.
We took a beating. I mean, I went down to like 30,000.
So right about the time of Levi's death, probably, right?
It took a beating.
But you went from over 100,000 down to 30,000 in your retirement account.
In my retirement, yes.
Any money in the bank at the time?
Yeah, we had normal living expense money, you know.
Okay.
We had money that we always have a big...
So you didn't take a lavish lifestyle from the death of your son?
No.
It was really all just put into retirements and investment money?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't...
So your $400,000 was put into retirement
My farm was paid for. My trucks were paid for.
Right, but I'm saying the $400,000 that you and Cindy took...
Right, we didn't...
You put that into retirement investments. You didn't go out and live a lavish lifestyle with it. You just paid for your retirement account. Right. You got your retirement account back up to something of realization.
Yeah.
Where you can now at least maybe someday retire.
Well, that's the thing, because we knew my health wasn't the best because of all the back surgeries. And, we knew that sooner or later I wasn't going to be able to work.
Karl may have unintentionally given evidence for a financial motive, stating that physically he'd only be able to work so much longer and that he barely had any money saved for retirement. He's extremely talkative, and by this point, he's established a good rapport with the detective, so it's not surprising that he may slip up and say something incriminating. He's established a motive to kill Levi for the money without even realizing it.
I want you to go over the true events, and I want you to be totally honest with me. I think there's been some deception that's kind of got you a little bit jammed up over the since Tom has been talking to you, and Tom and Lieutenant Clear. Now that your head's clear and you've got past some of the inaccuracies.
The detective now gets to the real crux of the matter and confronts Karl about lying previously. He refers to Karl's lies as inaccuracies to minimize his intentional lying. He wants the honest story.
There was some inaccuracies from what Tom was saying. Right. Tell me again the true events of how it came about that Levi was coming over to your house that day.
Yep.
And what happened when he got there.
He made plans. Like he always does. He asked me if he could come over to work on his truck.
You grew up on a farm, right?
Yeah.
You worked on machinery your whole life?
Everything.
Me too. I worked on cars, tractors.
The detective is continuing to build trust with Karl by bringing up a commonality, growing up on a farm. He wants to make Karl feel like they're similar people and that he can talk to him.
My farm was my grandfather's. I think some of what you're going to be telling me We always jacked everything. We had a big old railroad jack. Because my grandfather was a railroad man.
That's what we had.
And every farm had a railroad
Big
jack.
black freaking railroad jack. It weighed about 80 pounds.
They could lift the house up.
They could lift the house, but they were as stable as
Right.
How many times did yours tip over?
I think like most farmers, once we jacked it up, we blocked it with big wood blocks.
When you could find them. But,
or even concrete blocks.
Yeah, and it was...
Or we'd put a tire under the wheel. We would always say...
He's also telling him about his knowledge, so Karl will be less inclined to lie about the jacks and equipment, knowing he has a knowledge base in this area. Remember, Karl is talking about the jack that supposedly is responsible for killing his son. Not many parents would be able to stomach discussing a tool supposedly responsible for killing their own child so loosely.
It was a railroad jack. One of those, they jack it up that high, but
the base was only
that wide,
6, 8 inches.
that long,
right.
That little tooth that picks them up.
Right, and they have about a 2-inch in diameter stem that comes up.
Square stem,
right.
And it's that click.
Yep.
Click, and letting them down was the scariest thing in the world.
Sure was. You never want to let one
Get
down.
your finger in there, and you're clicking it one step at a time.
And it just drops, boom.
And a lot of times you click it the wrong spot, and you push that lever, and it's gone.
I pushed that lever 1,000 times in my life.
Karl takes the detective through events leading up to finding Levi. We pick up where Karl says he revisited Levi's body after being at a funeral with Cindy for over 4 hours.
And what did you do? I mean, you already know he's not going to be alive.
I knew, but it was like...
You think he was going to come back to life?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden it's like... I jacked it up.
And did your husband get the truck off of him?
He was jacking it up when I was just out there.
Pulled him out, and when I seen his face, it was like the switch turned on to reality.
He's pinned underneath the truck?
Yeah, my husband's lifting up the truck. Honestly, I don't think he's alive.
And his body had been lifeless for like 4.5 hours.
5 hours, whatever time.
And what did you do to him when you took him out? Did you hug him?
Oh, yeah, I laid right with him and cried like a baby.
And then at what point, how long did you lay there crying?
Well, as soon as I pulled him out, and it really, when I seen his face, it clicked.
That he's dead.
I ran to the house, and I don't run. I beat on the door, told her, I come out, she...
You were shocked he was just found dead, but you actually found him dead 4.5 hours
ago. Yeah, well, I was shocked when I seen his face.
Karl, they want to start CPR. Do you know CPR?
He was actually dead.
Yeah, it's like, this can't be happening. This can't happen. I mean, like I told them, I'm not going to make any excuse that I was on a load of drugs. I've been on drugs for a long time, and a lot of them. I bawled like a baby.
About what?
My son's dead. And for some reason, I could just set it back there for those hours and just stare at the wall.
The psychopathy that one must have to pull this charade off is extraordinary.
Do you think anybody's going to believe that you saw your son there?
Would you mind if I just stand up again?
When Karl asked to stand up, he was likely trying to escape from the detective's intense questioning.
Can you just, let's give me 1 second. Let me just get to this. You didn't feel the need at that point in time in your life to call because you knew that Levi's death he was better off, as you said, dead than alive.
No, not at that.
Do you think he was better off alive?
He was really coming around. The kid that I knew. My wife will tell you. I mean,
let's go over. Let's play the audio tape of you and Cindy.
No, I know it.
I think we really should play it because I think you need to clarify some things for us. Otherwise, we're all going to have a really a misunderstanding of what happened.
I mean, look, can I say?
You have a chance. Take my hand 1 second. You dug this hole, Karl. I'm here. I can feel your hand shaking.
My hand always shakes.
No, I watched you right now. Look, I'm here pulling out. You got a little hole dug here. A big hole.
The detective points out that Karl is shaking and moves his chair into Karl's personal space. He's now pointing to his body language to show his deception. He takes a more aggressive tone with Karl and begins confronting him more intensely. This is a tactical move, and he's also likely getting frustrated with the lies Karl keeps perpetuating.
There is a reason why you and me are sitting here.
Oh, I agree.
It's not just because of Cindy. It's because that accident, that death to your son is why we're both sitting here right now. That insurance policy is why we're here. That fire is why we're here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What are you sorry about?
I'm sorry that everybody's here for this when I understand with Levi.
I want to have the investigators bring in our audio recorder.
Do you mind if I stand?
Please stand up.
You do not know how bad this is.
While you stand up, I want to talk to the investigators and find out some information.
Fine. Can I go to the bathroom too?
Sure
I just got to take a leak.
Karl wipes sweat off his face, which is an indication that he's feeling very stressed and visibly nervous. After he asks for a bathroom break and the detective leaves the room, Karl is probably panicking. His mind is likely racing, searching for some way to talk himself out of the situation he's now facing. Karl has his hand over his face, indicating body language of wanting to hide and disappear. He's clearly uncomfortable with the proposition that he will have to listen to his confession in front of the police and try to explain it away. The lieutenant and detective have Karl literally backed into a corner by the way they have their chairs positioned. They're sitting extremely close to him, and the lieutenant is speaking in a low tone, gently pleading for him to come clean.
So, Karl, I really think that really John and Karl talking here. I mean, you look at everything laid out from the California fire to now. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's pretty damning evidence.
Oh, I know. I've always known it.
So,
that's why
what I think you need to do is look at the little damage control here. I mean, you come straight on Levi.
Oh,
maybe the other stuff.
No. I'm not even going to go there. That just...
Because out there now, that story just doesn't hold up. It doesn't make sense. There's no way that you walk away from your son and leave him there thinking he's pretty much deceased, and then go away for 4.5 hours and then come back and then put on a big show with everybody.
Like I told him.
Come on, Karl, take the mask off, buddy.
I'm not.
When
it's like I told this gentleman, when I pulled him out and I seen his face, it was like it was real. It was real.
So a guy like you that's mechanically minded and knows how to jack up a car, you jack it up wrong.
I didn't jack it up wrong. I mean, he knows the kind of jack I'm talking about.
I know the kind of jack, and I know from being on a farm my whole life, none of us would ever jack up and let our son ever get under jack with a single railroad jack on it. The most tippiest things in the world.
Well, he had blocks under the drums because the tires were off.
The tires were off, and the thing was up on a single jack, a pivot point. Just as you described it, Cindy. You described it right to the T on how you set it up and jacked it more and jacked it more and jacked it more. You go on with this conversation and you say to her, just hear me out. It was never meant to be. You know what I'm saying? It was never planned from the day one for this to ever go this way. And Cindy says, what do you mean day one? Like, you know what the time the insurance stuff.
The lieutenant places his hand on Karl's shoulder as the detective confronts Karl with his own words, confessing to the crime. This is an extremely pressure-filled position they have him in.
Coming out of the garage, it was like nothing happened, It was like being a hurricane and being an eye. Remember saying that to her?
Mm-hmm. And what I mean...
And again, she says, okay, tell me how it happened, just what happened. I asked him if he wanted to make some money because he was usually short on money. If he could just pull off these 2 lines, one from the transmission, one from the brake.
Mm-hmm.
And because they had the tires up, it talks about being wobbly. And the ability, you remember talking about describing how it was like a wheelbarrow? You jacked it up so it was like a wheelbarrow.
Right.
Backwards.
Did your wheelbarrow analogy you told Cindy, is that accurate?
Well, yeah, it could, yeah. Oh, yeah. But,
and it just shook. Easy to push over. And she asked you, does it push hard? And you said, no, it was easy. It pushed easy.
Right.
Do you remember saying that? That it pushed easy.
Yeah, I guess.
It doesn't miraculously push easy. And she asked you, did he feel any pain? Remember that?
No.
And you said, no, you don't think so. You think it was instantaneous.
The detective points out how illogical his statement is, and Karl is dancing around answering and can't explain it because it doesn't make sense, and he is realizing that now.
Cindy was trying to trap you?
And I says, what else could be her motive?
What do you mean what could be her motive? What is her motive?
I don't know.
Karl tries to keep flipping things back on Cindy and what her motive was. However, he's still unable to give any reason as to what he was hoping to gain by lying to Cindy, probably because there's no explanation that would make sense.
She was waiting for that one word.
What word?
That I must have killed him or something. That's all I could think of.
Did you not tell them that sickening, you admitted to pushing a truck over on your son?
Yeah, to feed the furnace. Feed the furnace. Come on.
Feed the furnace.
Who would kill their kid?
And then, if you think you're being set up, Karl, why in God's name would you go in there and say that?
Because I guess part of me was hoping.
What, that she'd say, okay.
And you want somebody back that you told her that you killed your son?
It doesn't make sense.
Well, I'm just.
Let's look at the totality of everything.
Yeah.
Karl takes a deep sigh and hangs his head, which is a sign that he may be starting to give in to the pressure and may confess soon. Seeing this body language, the officer should go in relentlessly.
Let's look at the house fire where your wife miraculously dies and the windows boarded up days beforehand. You told the investigators here earlier that it was 8 months ago that you boarded that window up in that bathroom prior to the fire. 8 months, you said. When did you board it up?
Like 8 months before? I don't know for word for
word. You told me a month and a half. How many months would you say beforehand?
It's got to be a month or so, maybe a month and a half. I thought it was like a month and I don't know.
And you tell investigators, my notes are in the other room, you tell the investigators in the California Police Department back then that it was 2 to 3 days prior to the fire. So 2 to 3 days, a month and a half, 8 months.
Well, you're talking 20-some years ago.
You drew the picture to perfection.
Oh, the house wasn't a big deal, because, come on.
You talked about a life insurance policy that you said was 4, 5, 6 months prior to taking it out on the death.
3, 4 months or something.
Oh, okay, so it was a significant, well, actually, that's not a long time.
We know for factual that wasn't the case at all.
No, I said
it was a matter of weeks beforehand. A short term before the fire starts and takes your wife's life.
I thought it was like 4 months.
You tell me that the kerosene was brought in to the house that day to fuel a kerosene furnace.
Right.
Yet you tell investigators back then in 1991 that it was mistakenly, you thought it was water. You brought in the house as a 5-gallon jug of water to fuel to put in the toilet, to flush the toilet because your pipes were frozen.
Right.
And mistakenly kerosene was brought in and knocked on the floor. But yeah, you tell me kerosene.
Yeah, but
and then you tell me that a dog knocks over a 5-gallon bucket.
Easy.
Not easy, almost impossible to knock over a 5-gallon bucket and spill it.
The tension is building, and the detectives are hoping that Karl will crack soon.
You were 600 feet away from the house, yet your wife's in a boarded up little room, and you hear her calling your name from 600 feet away.
It wasn't calling, it was screaming.
Screaming your name. And yet, you're able to get blown off the porch, open your eyes, your son's uninjured, you're able to grab your uninjured son out where this explosion just took place, without a mark on him, take him out of the house, run around, miraculously save your 2 daughters, and let your wife perish in this fire. With no attempt to rip that board off, that plywood board off that house, and get into that bathroom and help.
I went around, by that time, the fire was all the way around. What am I going to do?
No. That fire was all the way around, and you don't take a chance to look into that window and see your wife. There was no flames in that bathroom window.
Until you're there.
Your sister-in-law tells me that when they fly out there, they fly out to California to be there with you, that you want to go show them redwood trees and go dance on a redwood tree and go around. It lets nothing happen.
No.
The detective's tone is drastically different than it was before. He becomes significantly more animated, talking louder and pointing out all of the holes in Karl's story.
I had no...
So these were just a lot of coincidences that you take a life insurance policy out of your wife a matter of 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week before the fire. Just a coincidence that she goes in the bathtub and the fire starts up right outside in the middle of the floor of that door to a hallway. That's where fires always start.
All she had...
Every time we've done fires, Jack, always start in the hallway with no source of the fire around. But that's a coincidence. Just total coincidence. You go on, you collect $200,000, $210,000, $215,000. You come back here, you buy your farm.
No, I didn't buy a farm.
Ultimately, you did. Did you not ultimately buy a farm? You bought a house, and then you ultimately bought your parents' farm.
Right, and I paid my dad for it.
You sure did. But ultimately,
the money I worked for.
Levi, this one son of yours, this black sheep son, the one son that you don't get along with.
No, you can't say that.
Oh, you're great friends with him?
At the end, very much so.
So Levi, just total coincidence, takes out a $700,000 life insurance policy in name for his father that he doesn't get along with as a sole beneficiary. No. And you happen to pay the policy. And his death takes place one day before he has to have his physical, which you both know he's not going to pass because of the situation he has with his choking and his throat. You're very familiar with his medical history. So he comes over to your house, you entice him over to your house.
I don't entice him over to the house.
To pay him money. You're not going to pay him money?
Yeah, but I'm not enticing him. It's just what he always done.
Levi, come on over. I got $50 for you. Can you come? You're broke, and I got money for you.
No, he wasn't broke. He was working at Guardian at the time. I didn't know anything about any of his business money-wise. I don't know what they paid.
So he was flush with money?
No, he had. I mean, wouldn't you?
So now he comes over to your house with a $700,000 life insurance policy one day from his physical. You go out there.
I don't know when his physical was. I don't know when it was.
You go out there, he gets under this truck that your son, the one you're supposed to love and care for, this is your blood, your flesh and blood. And you jack it up on the chintziest, lousiest jacking system going that we both know of being on farms.
And they're
with no blocks,
powerful.
Nothing to support in case it falls over. Just, it's only my son going underneath there. And if this truck falls on him, it'll crush him and kill him. But miraculously, the truck falls over on him while you're there. And you say,
I wasn't in there when it happened.
Well, you might say that, but we both know you were in there.
Right.
And you then just say, well, the truck's crushed him. I don't want to take advantage of it, but I sure am happy that maybe I leaned up against it and fell over on him.
But I said I took advantage of the situation once it happened.
And then I go back in the house. I don't mention anybody. I don't call for help. Did you call 911 for help?
I didn't.
Did you call for help?
No.
And so he needed help, and you're his biological father, and you don't give him help? What kind of father are you?
Piece of
Yeah, exactly.
By confronting him with all of the discrepancies at once, he hopes Karl will feel defeated and lose resolve in both his story and himself.
You don't give him help. You let him be crushed under there. You go back and go, okay, honey, let's go to your uncle's funeral down in Penn Yan. And you get in that car and you drive. And you're unemotional. Driving along 4.5 hours into it. You drive down. You drive back and you say, showtime. I need to put on a show to make it so nobody knows it happened. And you go out to that garage where the radio's been cranked up so when the truck crushed him, he could scream and yell and nobody could hear his screams. Country music, which he didn't listen to, he didn't like, and it's screaming, it's blaring. It's blaring loud so he can't be heard. And you come back and you say, again, it's showtime for Karl to put on my show. My miraculously, I'm a liar show. And you go run back to the house and go, oh my God, Cindy, hurry, call 911. The truck fell over on Karl. Well, you've known that for 4.5 hours, and you want them to come out to your lifeless son's cold, dead body.
Karl hangs his head, indicating that he's shutting out what the detective is saying, or possibly that he's feeling defeated. In an interview, Cindy later revealed that when Karl found Levi, she thought that he acted overly distraught because he threw himself up against the wall.
Showtime! Within 1 month, I'm adamant. I get my $700,000 policy. I don't take my $700,000 and spend on the grandkids, which my son intended for. No. I say, hey, I'm broke. No. My insurance, my policy, my retirement plan went from over $100,000 down to $30,000. I am flush with money again.
No, this was in the wife's name too.
Once again, he places blame on anyone but himself. He continually blames Cindy for how the insurance money was spent. Karl refuses to take responsibility for anything, a classic sign of narcissism. Being exploitative and taking advantage of others for their own gain is another sign of a narcissist. Killing a family member for insurance money would definitely be considered exploitative.
The grandkids, mother doesn't anything. These girls got to be raised from the time they're 2 and 4 years old, and they get nothing. But Karl says, I can take care of myself.
I couldn't take care of Levi did not want Cassie to know about it or to get a penny from it. Levi did.
And he wanted the grandkids to grow up in squalor, didn't he? He wanted them to grow up in a shit house and a shit crap trailer, living like paupers when their dad had $715,000 in life insurance. So Karl got to build up his little independent life. Because you squandered away like you had your whole life. Doesn't mean that you didn't take it for yourself. You took the money for yourself and put little to nothing in the girl's name. And ultimately, that money was in the girl's name, you had total disregard for that too. Because you had no problem taking that money out of it and putting it right back in your pocket.
No, I had a problem with it.
Oh, really? Where is it?
It's interesting to note that during the entire diatribe the detective gives, Karl remains silent until he starts discussing money, and then Karl chimes in and starts arguing back.
You had such a problem? Is it in the girl's name?
The wife.
Oh, she took it out? And you didn't take anything? You didn't benefit from it?
Oh, we both did. We both did.
You did benefit. You benefit $700,000 in a loss of your son.
She still got her 100 and some.
When did the act stop, Karl, and the truth comes out?
When?
Is there ever truth with you?
Yes.
When? It hasn't been seen in the 20-some years we've researched you.
Okay.
There is no truth. Do you want to talk about the truth?
You gotta start thinking about some damage control, Karl.
Karl's own words are finally coming back to haunt him.
I did not kill him.
What killed him?
The truck.
How'd the truck kill him?
It landed on him. And I had nothing to do with the truck landing on him.
Karl, stop and think a minute. Do you think that anybody's gonna believe that you confessed to Cindy because you were playing a game with her and you left your son laying there dead because you were in shock for 4.5 hours?
Yeah.
Do you think people are gonna believe that?
No.
No, they're not. So don't you think you gotta do a bit of damage control here and start telling what really happened?
That's what happened.
It's not what happened.
It did.
It did. It did not happen that way. There's no way.
It did.
I've been around a long time, Karl. Nobody does that. All right?
Do you mind if I stand back up again?
No, I don't mind.
It's likely that Karl is trying again to escape the intense questioning when he asks to stand up. The detective appears annoyed and angry, and he storms out of the room, intentionally leaving Karl alone with his friend, the lieutenant. The lieutenant then pretends to take Karl's lying personally.
Jesus Christ, Karl.
Well, I can't tell you something that's not true, sir.
Karl's language has shifted somewhat, and he's now calling the detective sir. This is likely because the dynamic between Karl and the detectives changed once they increased the intensity of the questioning. Addressing the detectives in a formal manner may be an attempt by Karl to show them he's being cooperative, respectful, and that he is trustworthy.
You know, I'll go out on a limb for you to try and show that maybe there's some extenuating circumstances here, and you're going to throw this cock and bull story? Come on. No one's going to believe that, Karl. All right, Karl, I really wish you'd be... Last chance, buddy. After this, then things go as they go.
The lieutenant gives Karl an ultimatum. This is his last chance to confess. It's now or never. Of course, the police will never deny a suspect the ability to confess, but this statement is an attempt to add urgency in the suspect's mind.
I can't tell you what didn't happen, sir, and I mean it.
I don't want you to. But what you told me so far doesn't make any sense at all. And you know it doesn't.
It's like once it wears off,
All right, well, we'll get it out of the way.
Karl has his head in his hands and is clearly showing signs of stress. He's claiming that it's his need for medication, which is possible, but it's more likely that he feels the walls closing in on him and his freedom. He's now beginning to digest this. Karl's body language at this point is closed off. He's facing away from the detective and only makes limited eye contact, suggesting that he is disengaged from the conversation, or possibly feeling defeated. Compared to the beginning of the interrogation, he's much more quiet.
What game were you playing?
And what
about Karl?
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, tell me the f***ing truth, Karl.
I can't tell you something I didn't do.
You know, I'll walk down the road with you. I will. I'll walk down the road. I'll stand by you on this if you are honest about it. Because everybody else that's working this case is pretty much giving up on it.
Yeah, but look what happens to me. I'm going to go to jail.
When Karl states he's going to jail, he may be fishing for information about whether the detectives have enough evidence to convict him.
I don't know what's going to happen to you yet.
For something I didn't do. You know, for something I didn't do. I let him down, I walked away, and I lived with that for 4 years. You know, you guys somehow, pulled that out of me. And in a way, it's been a relief.
Good. It should be relief.
Never hurt him? Good.
You did. It's all right.
As the lieutenant sees Karl is breaking down, he now touches him to encourage him to confess. Unsurprisingly, Karl first wants to know how confessing will help him.
I'll stand up for you.
What are you gonna do for me?
I'm going to stand up and say this wasn't premeditated, cold-blooded murder, that it was just something that happened. Shit happens sometimes, Karl. That's what I'll do for you.
In 5 seconds, Karl will seal his fate deeper than any moment before in this entire interrogation.
Next. I opened the truck door.
Okay.
When they did
Finally, Karl divulges that it was an accident and breaks down crying. The lieutenant pats him on the back, supporting Karl for this admission, but then quickly presses him for more. However, even if Karl doesn't fully confess, the officers have more than enough evidence to show his actions were planned and intentional.
and if I hit the box underneath it wouldn't have happened.
Karl, what was an accident? Why'd you try and hide it? You're very close, Karl. Come on.
I didn't do it.
I think part of you did. Maybe not all of it.
No way, I didn't. There was nothing.
Man, you can do it.
It's an accident. I opened up the door and stepped in. I got a cramp in my back.
Karl again uses his ailments to distract from the confession.
Oh. I started getting muscle spasms bad.
Okay, well, I got somebody working on it. I got somebody working on getting that for you. Let's finish. We're almost done.
It's impossible to believe Karl's claim that he accidentally killed his son by stepping inside the truck. Even someone who isn't knowledgeable about jacks would not do such a dangerous thing, and Karl has been working on cars since he was a kid.
So you opened the car door?
I opened the truck door because I had to get inside to move the linkage for the truck. And when I did, it tipped and it just fell over.
No, you're almost there, my friend.
I get up. I gotta walk this.
When Karl sees that the detective is not accepting the accident version of events, he asks to stand up again, likely to try to escape the interrogation.
I had nothing to do with any of the other things. I don't give a shit how bad it looks.
Karl makes sure to add he isn't culpable for the other stuff, as once again he's focused on himself and self-preservation, even while admitting to killing his son. The detective returns and the lieutenant reveals that Karl has confessed. It's likely that the detective was watching the confession and strategically re-entered the room. He pulls a chair up directly in front of Karl and leans into him to invade his personal space. The detective is, again, being friendly to Karl, but this will not remain the case.
But did you know he died of suffocation because his lung was collapsed? And if the truck was lifted off him, he would have been able to breathe.
I don't know what I was thinking.
But if you just jacked it back up, you know how to use that railroad jack.
Oh,
so
yeah,
it
I know.
fell.
I know.
So the truck fell on your son, and instead of jacking it back up, you ran.
I was scared as shit. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Just a mental thing, it just went.
I just went. It didn't register. It just blanked. So I just got the hell out of there, like a kid that threw a window through a glass or something and didn't want to get caught.
Oddly, when telling detectives the new version of the accident that caused Levi's death, Karl states that he was like a kid who didn't want to get caught. If Karl's story is true, it would certainly make sense to Karl to feel some guilt about inadvertently causing his son's death. However, it would be very strange to describe that he didn't want to get caught if it truly was unintentional.
Their lungs can't expand, and he can't breathe. So your son was still very much alive, and you could have saved him. And you could have brought him to life, but you ran and let him die?
The detective now begins to play bad cop to the lieutenant's good cop and confronts Karl with the fact that after the truck fell, He left him there to die instead of helping him to dispel his story that it was an accident.
Why? Because of the insurance policy?
No. It just
because
I'm scared. I don't know.
It had nothing to do with the insurance policy.
Nothing. I never even thought of it at that time. I just thought, oh.
Do you think that I believe that?
I don't care what anybody believes. I really don't anymore.
Do you think anybody in this world is going to
Probably
believe that story?
not. I didn't kill him.
You did kill him. You did kill him.
I did.
Intentionally.
No.
Accidentally.
Yeah, it was an accident.
Just when it fell over on him, instead of going to his aid, his rescue of your son, you said, nah,
it wasn't.
He's dead. He's going to die if I don't help him, so I'm not going to help him. What did you say? I don't want him to live?
Nothing. Nothing.
You were in the military. Didn't you tell the investigator earlier that you maybe kill people, save lives?
But you go blank. I went blank. It's my kid. It's just...
No, nobody goes blank in that regard. See, this guy here, he believes you. Me, I'm not the guy that's believing your story.
The detective claims that the lieutenant believes Karl's story, despite the fact that he doesn't, in order to play up the good cop, bad cop routine they've started. Karl turns his body away from the bad cop and toward the good cop, trying to decrease his feelings of discomfort.
No, I don't know what to tell you anymore.
I think for once in your life, I don't know if you've done it in 50 years, but I think it's about time you sit around and you told somebody the truth. Karl, you killed him, and you pushed that truck over him, and knowing that you could have saved him, knowing that you could have helped him, you never wanted to help him. You never wanted to save him and get that truck off him. Because $700,000 plus was waiting for you.
Who gives a shit about the money?
Oh, you very much gave a shit about the money. In fact, you told me how excited you were about this big mare horse you had. It was going to make you millions of dollars. Make you millions of dollars.
Yeah, but that was...
You're a money-driven individual, Karl. Period.
Yeah.
$700,000 is what you had to gain from his death. $200,000 is what you had to gain from your wife's death in California.
Whoopee.
The detective confronts Karl with the changing stories he's told in the hopes that he will finally tell the real story, as he's already been proven to be a liar.
And we're talking about the situations of all these fires, of all these deaths, of all these alleged coincidences that happen to be fully insured, each one of them, to the max.
Because, it's not to the, I don't know what you call the max.
Well, I have no insurance on my kids. I don't know why you would have insurance for $700,000 on your son. I'm not going to call you a liar. I'm going to tell you that you're as untruthful as any person I've ever met. And attempt to be more manipulative. And to do what you did to your son and try to tell us 3 different versions of it without still telling us the truth shows me who you really are.
The detective completely dresses Karl down. He then walks out, leaving the lieutenant there to play the good cop and see if Karl leans on him for comfort. This is all part of the good cop, bad cop technique.
Karl, I think I think most of them are going to feel like he does.
I know. What am I going to say?
I think you ought to just take the last step. You're almost there.
Would you mind, can I get more water, or even just fill up a cup or something? I don't need, just something like...
Karl requests water, once again conveniently distracting from the issue at hand.
Some part of you, Karl, had to want him to die. I'm telling you straight, I don't mean that to be an insult. The reason I'm saying that is because you walked away from him and you left him there, the truck on top of him. Mm-hmm. Some part of you had to be okay with that.
I don't know why I would have been.
This is a sworn statement. You have to tell the truth on this.
Okay.
All right. Why don't you write your account of what happened that day?
The lieutenant is now completing the last step of the Reed technique by having Karl reduce his confession to writing on an affirmation. This makes it more difficult to retract a confession or say your words were misunderstood when they are written down by the suspect himself, knowing it is a sworn statement.
Is there something you think you should apologize for? This is not a bad place to do it. If you want to write an apology to Levi after you state what happened. I mean, are you sorry what happened, Karl?
I am. How do you walk away? I mean, how do you...
That's the hard part, because that's the hang-up here.
I know, and I understand that, and it's like...
Because the brutal truth...
And this is...
The brutal truth is, you did kill him. Whatever your intent was... the action you took caused the truck to fall on him.
The action
And then the inaction of leaving them there.
Right.
Okay, so.
Contributed or whatever.
Yeah.
I wonder, and I've often wondered, did the drugs play a role?
By now, Karl likely has a good idea about how much evidence is against him, so he's trying to more concretely build a defense that he doesn't remember his actions because of the drugs he was on. He's been hinting at this defense throughout the interrogation. It's not a believable defense, as this was planned for weeks. He recalled many details about other things in his life at that time with no problem whatsoever.
Well, you know how people that are on drugs, they kill people, and it's like, and they don't remember it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not saying it's like that, I'm just saying.
But it could be.
After Karl is alone, he puts his head in his hand, which could suggest that he's feeling defeated and/or fatigued. He then shifts to an even more downtrodden position, leaning onto his knee with his head down. Day has drifted into night, and at this point he has been in the interrogation room for over 9 hours, so feeling worn out would be expected. He's likely thinking and possibly feeling anxious about what is going to happen next. They have the lieutenant effectuate the arrest, as he's the one who's been playing good cop, and Karl will be more cooperative with him.
Well, come with me. You're under arrest. I think you knew that was coming.
Of course, as you may have speculated, Karl's arrest was far from how it all ended. After Karl was arrested, Cindy realized that the pelvic pain she'd been experiencing when around him abruptly stopped. She now wonders if Karl had possibly been trying to poison her with arsenic. Though this is just speculation, Cindy was likely lucky to escape with her life, especially given the fate of Karl's first wife, Chris. The findings that were unearthed during the extensive investigation into Levi's death raised many new questions, and they were the kind that couldn't go unanswered. Not this time around. In the months that followed his arrest, Karl continued to insist that he was not to blame for Levi's death. Then, in a strange turn of events, on the very day his trial was set to begin, Karl pleaded guilty to murder in the second degree on November 6, 2013. The following month, he was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. His self-described bad luck took a turn for the absolute worst several years after he pleaded guilty to causing Levi's death. The suspicious fire that resulted in his first wife Chris's death in 1991 was revisited, and the conclusion reached was far different than that which resulted from the initial investigation. Karl stood trial for the murder of Chris in January of 2020, and on February 3rd, he was convicted of murder in the first degree. He received a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. Despite the collection of insurance policies he obtained, not another will die at the hands of Karl Karlsen.